Welcome. This is Mu 16, the Mu Microtonal Flute Festival. And before we start, I'd like to play some music. So thank you, Michael. Thank you, everybody. We're now going to be meeting human beings. And so here we are. I thought I'd just try to do something neutral in the beginning that featured Stefani Starin as the flutist. Stefani, we go way back. I know you a long time, and I know how difficult it is to present you in a flute festival because this is a microtonal flute festival. And I think of you as a co-director of New Band with Harry Parch. I think of you you're part of the ensemble I'm conducting. I think of you in terms of solos that you've done, Takamitsu, Johanni Nuorvalo, who's here today. Happy birthday, I believe. Say hello.
Thank you.
Hello.
So you play mainly as a microtonal flutist, and I could have called this the Microtonal Flutist Festival instead of flute, because as Robert has demonstrated to me, it's not about the instrument, it's the person. You guys are flutists. And so some people don't even want to say, I think of myself as a microtonalist. And
I don't think of myself as a microtonalist.
Okay. Why?
Because I just play music, and if it's in a certain tuning system, I go there, and another system, I go there. So I think by labeling, it's like back in the day, like they're the 12-tone people and the serial people, and everyone had their own little camp and had to live in there and believe in that camp and make the other camp be like inferior. But I don't go there. I don't
we're not
have
that
camp going on.
Yeah, I don't feel that different in the sense that I'm looking at all music as microtonal. You know,
Yeah.
if you see it that way,
yeah,
then we're not really separating. We're actually uniting.
Yeah, that's
Now,
good.
Of the tunings that you like to play, you base it on G because of Harry Parch, right?
Well, I would tune my G to the Zamousophone 1-1G.
Not anymore.
No, but so you asked about that. So
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So the Zamousophone, for people who don't know, is a metallophone made out of PVC pipe, right?
It's a aluminum tubed instrument that has 4.5 octaves.
Right. And we're not all going to get one to tune to.
No.
No.
No, but I don't understand when you ask what I tune to. I just also like to tune my flute to G because it feels right.
Okay.
I like that. I don't like tuning to A. It's not in tune, really.
I noticed that because I do A all the time because as I'm working through the multiple systems, I like to use the alphabet as a benefit because, it helps me coordinate. If I'm naming chords and I'm starting with A, and I think, Stravinsky and Ives both did a lot of their stuff based on A. I think for that reason. I'm maybe interpolate, putting my own thought there, but it's helpful. I don't know how many people feel that way. So when you do G, I know there's a
But when I'm
tradition.
playing with string players, I don't tune to G, but okay. Right, so that's different.
So how did you find your fingerings? Because there weren't that many people around to give them to you.
Well, Robert Dick is sitting right there. He has so many books that I could just open up for starters. And hi, Robert. And then, of course, everyone has their own instrument. They have to mess around with it and try their own little tweakings for everything. There is no absolute with those charts, of course. But yeah, there are a lot of books that I could refer to. I remember back in the day, I would go to the Lincoln Center Library, oh my God, and get out these books and copy them on a copy machine. So I forget what book that was. It was really big and I couldn't afford it, something like that. But yeah.
Did you write them down, or you just did it by memory and you just kept them that way?
Everything's written down whenever well, I did a chart for you, first off. Remember that book you put together with microtonal fingerings? Yeah, I wrote that down.
That's true. We have something called a fingerography, and we put it out as part of pitch for the International Microtonal in the 90s.
And of course, any instrumentalist puts little fingerings above their notes when they have to remind themselves, again, what was that?
And I'm going to be asking questions of everybody like this because I'm not a flute player.
Okay, so get ready, guys.
But I like this movement, this, and that, and I see you do that. I don't know if everybody does it the same way, but I know that you're tuning, like when I see you play Johanni's piece with the bass flute, your head going up in this way. Are you calculating how far up and down? I mean,
you're talking about pitch waving. We just get a feel for that, how far you have to go with your lips and all that. I think that was alto flute though.
Oh, yeah. I guess all of you are preferring open hole flutes.
Well, we have to have them.
It's a must.
And I was lucky back in 95 or 97. I can't remember. I bought the quarter tone flute that Brandon was putting out. So that was very helpful because there were all other things I could do to explore pitches and textures and stuff.
Did you ever compare your regular flute with the quarter tone flute and see if you could play those same quarter tones on the regular flute?
Well, I started out like everyone else does with just the plain old flute, and I learned to play lots of, you can do everything with alternate fingerings. The thing about the quarter tone flute is it creates an even sound, so you don't have a different tone or sound for the funky fingering. But those funky fingerings are great because
Is there a way to take the funky sound and through, let's say, circular breathing, I know is a technique I can use on bassoon. Can you get the funky sound timbres to change with long tones somehow to make them less funky? Or
no, it has nothing.
It
has nothing to do with that.
Okay.
No, it's just this. It has nothing to do with that. It's just because you've opened a couple holes that just have a sound.
Right. I mean, I'm always appreciative of the fact that you don't have 26 keys, right? But the bassoon, it's like I've always thought of it as fretless, and I don't know if you guys in the flute world think of it that way ever.
I think the better people do. Like Robert can just go up and down like it's nothing.
Well, Robert is an anchor for us today. There's no question about it.
Yes.
And it was only last week that we were focusing on so many other issues. We'll see what fresh things we bring up today. Stefani, can you just, maybe a last question that I have would be just what microtonal pieces, and I'm saying non-12 here because I'm going to say 12 is microtonal too. It's just another system. What microtonal pieces now, just think back and just pick, let's say 3, obviously Johanni's because he's here, but it's true anyway for Johanni because it's a beautiful piece. But what other things? I mean, Harry Partch didn't write for flute, did he?
No, but I played so much. I have, decades of music. I can't at this point say what, I'm sorry that it's something I can tell you what things really were really too difficult to learn. Those are the things I remember. That took like months to,
There must be Unity Capsule by Fernie Howe. Was that the name of a flute piece?
Was it? I don't know. I
Yeah.
didn't
Oh, you
his
didn't get
music.
to that one? That's
Well, his
okay.
music was all too hard. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a very mixed reputation in the microtonal world.
Oh. Hmm.
Well, thank you so much. I don't want to,
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me about the John Cage piece that everyone listened to. I was all prepared to answer questions
well,
about it.
no, you can do that because I mean that's a link that everybody heard, so it's
Yeah,
not.
that's what I mean. So if anyone had any questions about that piece, I have answers maybe.
Well, why don't you tell us what you think our questions are and just tell me what what you
What the
want to say.
score looked like? What did you get? What did you do with that score? Like that?
Well,
I
I
mean, I
mean,
don't know.
I think that the fact that John Cage wrote a piece for you and Zamousophone as a single piece is a microtonal endeavor by this composer who actually liked to think of himself as microtonal. And we've extended it, of course, with the prepared piano, with the aggregate idea of partials, inharmonic even, that are not 12 equal. So, uh,
So what he did is he just took all the pitches on the Zamousophone, 31 per octave, and through some sort of process with the I Ching, came up with an order of no, came up with an order. That's it. And he would mark the score. He would have one pitch sitting there, and then underneath the note would be F for flute or Z for Zamousophone, who would go first. That's all we were given.
so it's like one step past the electric cactus piece.
I don't know.
You know that one?
No.
You just amplify your cactus.
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah.
And then you just pluck and get different pitches each time you pluck a different thorn.
Right.
Okay. All right. So that's John Cage, who,
Mhm.
again, we don't really want to talk about John Cage too much today, because that's not
You don't have to.
but it's neat to bring him in. I mean, this is a legitimate way to bring him into the, microtonal discussion. And thank you for doing that. I mean,
Thank you.
I invited John Cage to the concert, and he wrote me a little memo saying, "Well, for good reasons and not so good reasons, I can't be there." No, he didn't say it like that. He said it some John Cage way that I can't remember. Like it's very kind of cute that he would be in Russia and that he couldn't be there, but I'm sure he would have loved to. And you can hear this piece also on YouTube as just sound, not you can't see it played by New Band, which is different than the recording I linked to, which is a live performance that we did.
Did we do it on your festival?
Yes, you did.
Oh, I don't remember that.
That's what I linked to. So if you check the link, you'll get to hear it.
Oh, I thought you used the recording. I didn't know.
Oh, no, no. Okay, well, thank you. I mean, I wanted you to be here first because, my experience in New York is with you, for some of it. Then there was a middle section where we didn't work together because we kind of had two rival organizations, but it had nothing to do with you.
Nothing, I
Nothing,
should say.
nothing. And then that resolved itself. And I'm so glad that we get to work together again, at least up until the present moment where we're all in the world, on shaky ground, thanks to COVID. But thank you for being here. And I loved it. I wish I had that colorful background that you do. Like mine is like this. Anyway, thank you so much. Any questions for Stephanie?
Bye.
Anybody want to ask her anything? Comment or anything? Say hi to her?
I'll say hi to all of you. And
Okay.
bye.
Bye. Okay, thank you. So now I bring in Jane Rigler. Jane Rigler I met in LA in this really weird circumstance. You do remember it?
No, I don't even remember.
I was visiting Cal Arts to do a bassoon thing.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And Sarah Schoenbeck invited me to this jam session that was recorded. I never heard the recordings. You might still have them. I don't know where they are, but people were playing like challenges, improv challenges that you recorded. It challenges like as soft as you can,
Oh,
I can't remember that because it was so far back.
yeah.
But you played flute in a way I hadn't heard anybody play like that. because you and I know how you talk about it because I checked the internet. I've seen a lot of things you've done since. I know about your brother. I know now about how what you grew up with. I can just say Jane's brother is a famous musician in his own right, but mainly with different kinds of things like whistles.
No, well, yes, but he's primarily a bagpiper. So he started on the Highland bagpipes and as a child, and was competing by the time he was 9 in the Highland Games all throughout California. And
And
so my
that's why you
life,
compete, right? You were a
and
competitor.
then I ended up competing in the flute, of course. Yeah, of course, I was like competitive. I'm very good.
Right.
But yeah, some of the bagpipe and the Scottish Irish heritage is very much a part of my upbringing and the traditions. So, and
But
I was
then
always really
you broke it.
jealous, like
Hmm.
he could play a pipe, and he actually taught himself how to circular breathe on the practice chanter when he was like 8 years old. And I was really jealous that I couldn't do that. And so when the time came, it wasn't until my master's, I really, I was determined to circular breathe and learn, how to do some of the things that, sort of apply some of these techniques of drones and things like that on my one tube.
I love the way you call it a tube.
Yeah, it's just that. It's just the tube.
It's a tube.
I think we can all probably agree.
And your
With a bunch
way
of
of
holes.
now, the start is orchestral, right? You went to a lot of classical stuff. So
Yeah, I was
that's why I brought the
definitely,
brother in because that's
yeah.
a different influence. And you took the tube and you said, "What can I do with the tube?" Right? So, can I sing with the tube? Can I make noises? And you created an intimacy. That's probably the thing that
Hmm.
that's my big take.
Oh, I like that word. I agree. I agree that I'm probably coming more intimate with and inviting people more into the microscopic world, um, of sound inside, and because of a tube and the voice and the body. I mean, our body's a tube as well. It's it's a tube, and our flute is a tube. And I think this way that we resonate together, right? Each other. The tube resonates your body and the voice and this and the breath, and the body does the same for the instrument. And I do think as I age, I'm becoming much more interested in the messy, messy, gritty elements of the body, the changing body, um, and the world around us, and all of the little tiny sounds and not so tiny sounds that this instrument can make. Um, and so a quarter tone flute just basically gives you more more holes, more options, more combinations of finding that expression. I think,
You're using a
and
quarter tone flute.
I'm sorry.
You're using a quarter tone flute.
Yeah, I have two. I have one quarter tone flute and I have a regular flute, and I switch back and forth, and a piccolo as well. I have John Fonville's piccolo. Um, so yeah, I switch back and forth. I try to find each one has its own kind of expression or its own voice, and I try to create little languages, you know, out of all of this sort of maybe non-human language. Right.
Another influence I noticed for you, and I want to bring this in because they're so wonderfully diverse. And this is actually an influence for me. If you're an improvising bassoonist, there aren't a lot of people to point to. And
Yeah.
I pointed to somebody that you pointed to,
Mm.
Eric Dolphy.
Oh God, yeah.
I remember a liner note on one of his albums when they were LPs saying, if the birds can sing microtones, why can't we play them?
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
And
Yeah.
would you be interested in playing a little bit for us?
Well,
Improv?
I'd love to. I was hoping to have a better microphone. I was doing a couple of tests this morning and I'm just using this one, which isn't great. But um, are there any questions or anybody want to
You want to do that
chat.
first before you
No.
play?
I mean, we can do both. I can play and then we can ask questions.
We can ask questions while you play.
That's true. You could. I welcome all sounds. It was interesting that you talked about drones and long zones and circular breathing, because the thing that the piece that I wanted, it's not really a piece, it's an exploration that I wanted to share relates to that. Actually, what you asked Stefani about, and this kind of subtlety of the voice. And so this is something that I worked on many, many, many years ago. And I lived in Spain and I had just a regular flute. And I was exploring with just one note, the note G sharp, if you want to call it G sharp, I'm not sure. So it relates to Stefani's G, I think. And at the time I was just interested, and I'm still interested in all of the subtleties between the instrument and the voice. And the fact that it's a quarter tone can help me relate to my voice more. So this is basically this exploration on a G sharp. I don't know if my mic where it's supposed to be, but my instrument's cold. All right, let's see what happens here. I'll try not to take very long. I'll just do a short thing. Whatever. Whatever that was, I have no idea. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was really, I mean, the great news is no one could expect that.
Not even me.
It's even, I guess that's even better, right? No, that's not better, right? You can't listen to yourself when you do it, though. Right.
I guess I'm listening to everything and just following along a kind of a wave. But yeah, it's different every time. It's like a basic idea and then it sort of structures itself as it goes.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
please. Hi.
Hi, Jane. Just remarkable. I've never heard anyone get that much out of one flute note in that short period of time. I mean, there was just such a richness of what you were doing. One of the things I heard that I found, there was almost a tension and release in what you just did, in that there were times where you'd pull the flute a little ways away and I would hear just your beautiful voice for a second. and then it would go back into this sort of dueling pitches that were generating this sort of beating. And then other times I would hear only the flute and not your voice. And it reminded me a little bit of African pygmy yodeling. Have you ever heard that? Because
it's very influential in what I do.
okay, all right.
The hocket and the back and forth. It's the first thing when I was getting into singing and playing that really struck me, because I realized I could yodel, I could switch. Yodeling is basically switching between the head voice and the chest voice very quickly.
Right.
And I realized I could do it on the same note. So, so then I created pieces around that using the bass flute and the alto flute, where I would explore what my voice was capable of doing. And basically it was a gratitude to people and their way of thinking about a tube and the voice and the relationship between us and plants, really, and trees and the life form of the tube itself. And so I was just kind of exploring that, and that's what I still kind of do.
Yeah,
So thank you for
utterly
noticing that.
fascinating. But
And you do vocal training, and you found your voice matching the flute, and you did that intentionally, right?
Yeah.
And,
Did you have any other questions though? I really
you need to
appreciate
go.
you
That's
bringing
true.
them.
Any other thoughts or comments?
Oh no, I mean anyone. Yes, Michael.
I just want to say I love that, and the fact that Eric Dolphy got mentioned. I didn't know if you were listened to any Rasan Roland Kirk, because he did similar things and had the nose flute too.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I love that.
I've got a nose flute too.
Well,
yeah.
How about the Indian Banzuri, Charusia Haris Prada? Yeah,
amazing.
I love him too.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I hear your individuality, but I hear the influence of everything, so it's beautiful.
Thank you so much.
So no question, just love it.
Oh, thank you.
Bruce?
Well, I have a comment. Can you hear me? Okay. So you had your G sharp happening, and it's a vented fingering, and you were using some of the other keys in the right hand, I think, to extract some of those timbres, correct?
Yes.
It occurred to me that it's really such a nuanced sound that it would be very interesting to have more than one microphone. I can imagine that maybe you've mic'd it in different ways.
I have,
to exploit that.
sure. Yeah, one of the things I'm really interested in is between this tube, the hole from the mouth and the little language. I could do a whole other little thing where I have an exploration of just what's going on here. Right, all those things. And then each of the fingers. So having actually 5 mics is really wonderful. And I think Robert will attest to this as well, and in terms of all the ways in which we mic the instrument and the tube itself, and the traveling of sounds and the life form that happens in each of these holes, right? It's kind of extraordinary. But yes, I have worked with that, and the surround sound. I did that at Harvest Works, actually, where you kind of had all of the different speakers around your head, and then I would play, and it's super fun. It's just amazing. Yeah, the surround sound stuff's awesome. Wouldn't you love just to be like hugged by a flute sound, like a tube? As I ask everyone, yeah, that's it. Feels like a hug.
I have a question.
Anton.
Well, what you did was very impressive, very great sound, very great effects. I presume that you do incorporate certain microtonal tunings and temperaments when you do that. I mean, do you concentrate on certain? Yes.
Yeah, I'm not actually thinking in this particular piece, like what I wanted to share with you today is not on a particular scale or a particular tuning system. Although, of course, I've played lots of pieces like that. This is more about one timbre or one colorations.
Well, I understand the timbre is separate from the pitch.
Yes.
I understand that. But you do, at the same time, you also combine that with microtonal, right? You play in all the different tunings and temperaments. Did you play?
Oh, yeah.
Did you play Johnny's 128?
I don't think I've ever played that. No.
He hasn't.
Not yet. Well, that's.
He's looking for writing for you. That's what he's thinking, you know. And he
yeah.
Stefani
Nice.
has done some 128 with me a little bit, But
Nice.
that it worked out well with
Well, maybe
everybody.
other composers too, not only me. I'm not
Yes.
the only one.
I'm pleased to hear that, of course.
I'd love it. I'd love it.
Well,
Yeah,
anybody wants to leave their information in the chat, please do.
please.
Jane, you could do that, and then people have a chance to contact you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'd love to interact. I'm so happy to meet you, even if just virtually here. I'd love to learn more about everyone. This is great.
Cool.
Thank you.
You so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, so now Robert, you can Robert Dick, you can respond directly to when she brought your name up, and you could, I would say, take over and say whatever you want to, and you're speaking to you know who you're speaking to.
I do. I actually do.
Go. Yes,
So,
go.
First of all, I also play a King assistant flute, one that has been expanded quite a bit with my own ideas. And I never think of it as a quarter tone flute. I mean, here we are, and I know in a microtonalist conclave, maybe a coven, but quarter tones are not important to me. Nor are microtones per se. I'm much more involved in the exploration of emotional expression, and in the kind of continuous transformation of sound. So, the sort of ultimate microtonal thing you can do with the flute is, everything's in there somewhere. So with the glissando head joint, which I'm sure everyone here knows that I invented it, but it's here because of the enormous help I got from Bickford Brannan and Kaspar Bechy, who you might not know, and Eva Kingma. But for example, the holes stay in the same relationship to each other. Well, this relationship is changing. So it's not a transposer. In order to transpose, the holes would have to get further apart as you extended the tube. So what would be a quote unquote chromatic scale and so the same little fingering pattern and so I'm basically following the sounds and following the emotions and trying to manifest them in sound. And the most important, and so I don't actually know any of these numbers. If I saw a score where the pitches were notated in ratios, I'd be back at day one. I actually never learned to read that stuff. So now what's important to me, more important of having this capacity, and the goal would be to have the greatest musical freedom possible. So to develop the instrument that would allow that. And so, for example, the transposition of multiphonics is something that's important in my music. And on the Durham flute, back in the 1840s and 1850s, his thinking was incredibly far-reaching and progressive, but he was thinking about one note at a time, and those notes would be the notes in the chromatic scale. And if that is what you wanted, he's come up with, a genius system that has remained essentially unchanged. Just a couple of tweaks, but nothing profound ever since it was introduced. And but if you're thinking in terms of an expanded conception of color, of pitch, of multiple sounds, of sonority, it becomes this irrational obstacle course where, you know, yes, you can have that, but no, you can't have that. You need that hole open and that one closed? Sorry. And, you know, and that just had to go. And to date, this is as far as we've gotten. I don't believe it's the end of the road. The next step, of course, would involve a different fingering system. And I know there's going to be a huge inertia about that because that's much more work to learn. And playing classical music, as most flute players do, on this new fingering system would sound very much like playing it on the band flute. And so they wonder, like, well, why am I going through all that trouble? So it'd be really for someone who wants to have an ergonomic fluidity, and with in a creative context. So of course, that means it's going to be hard to get makers to make it, and there's the whole economic issue that comes into it. So the advantage of the Kingma system is that any flute player can pick up a flute and, play the same old on it, and it's going to sound, unless they use the expanded capacity, same old, and they'll be perfectly happy. Just in brief, most of what I'm doing these days is improvising. I haven't put very many notes on paper in quite a while. Thinking about trying to get back to it, so I'm just going to improvise a minute. And I'm going to start on a G sharp. Thanks.
Bravo.
Don't ask me to repeat that.
I don't have a lot of questions for you. I've known you for many years. That's a privilege. It's wonderful. But I wonder, just off the cuff here, do you play any differently because everybody here knows you and is a flute player?
Do I play any
Do
differently?
you do anything different?
I don't know. I've been trying to identify, what my musical truth, for my whole life, and as I think as we all are, and I suppose from my own perspective, it's actually both completely intuitive and completely logical, and how somebody else would you know, try to put that against the template of their assumptions is their problem. So, you know, in a way, you know, I like to say that the tenets of the Buddha can be reduced to three simple things. You know, shit happens. It's not about you. And fuck them if they can't take a joke. So, you know, and now, of course, all of those expressed with far more nuance and elegance and, you know, and profundity. But, so the, you know, our musical interests change, of course, as we move through life and evolve. You know, 30 years ago, in New Winds, Ned Rothenberg was always on my case because my rhythm was the least developed part of my playing. Well, you know, I finally got around to it, you know, and in my own way, which was basically through listening to a lot of African music and then just trying to embrace it intuitively. You know, I've been doing a lot of kind of rhythmic drumming on the bass flute and the bass flute in F. Both of those instruments right now are having some maintenance done, but I could very briefly do a little bit on the contrabass flute.
I was in Robert's home a couple of years ago, not too long ago, and it's a museum.
That was wicked.
Wow.
That was great.
So that's kind of what I did in the pandemic. I stayed at home and clicked my keys.
Terrific. Any questions or comments for Robert?
I always have questions for for Robert. Robert, I'm still absorbing what you first did with that slide, that mouthpiece thing.
It's called the glissando head joint.
Glissando head joint, are those commercially available, or do you have the only one in the world?
No. It is commercially available. I have a tiny little company that has them made, and if you want one, if anyone wants one, send me an email.
Okay.
And there are about 300 of them in the world at this point.
And do you sell the whole flute that way, or do you just put it? It's a adaptation. You just put on an existing flute.
It's a head joint. It goes
Okay.
into flutes. Yes.
Oh, great, wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. What I found so interesting about it was when it's all the way in, you're in 12 equal, right?
When it's all the way in, you have a regular.
You have a regular flute.
Flute. Yeah.
What's happening in between it is where the gold is buried. I mean, it's what I heard happening was like you say, it's not a linear gliss. It's not like a transposition. There are actually harmonics that are changing. And I noticed you were playing with that.
Yes. Yeah.
That
Well, of course.
The further out you get, what exactly is happening in between there?
Well, the longer the tube,
Mhm.
the easier it is to play higher harmonics.
Mm.
You know, because you're dividing the air into these little subunits, and the shorter they get, the more energy it takes.
Mhm.
And you know, anybody who's just played natural harmonics on the flute knows that you can get a lot more from the low B than you can from the B an octave above.
Right.
And this is a definite shortcoming in how the universe was created, but no one was asking us. So
Probably a good
then,
thing.
so then, and so, you know, there's, with enough experience, you can feel when things are entering or not. So, I mean, for example, here I'm going to use this little finger, just an A there. I mean, that's a multiphonic that's appeared in a zillion pieces at this point. Now,
the interval changes.
Yeah. And that's one of the cool things about it. I think, you know, we can leave the perfectly moving intervals to you know, other instruments. And although sometimes they will stay the same.
What happens if you play just a C major scale and then you remove it?
Well, that's what I did before. Okay, so here is a C major scale. That's spelled S-E-E.
Love it. So there are coherent.
I'm melting.
I love it. I love it. Oh, it's great. Wow. So say halfway between, you have another scale, right? An actual viable scale if you wanted to stop, right?
Yes, you could locate what's going on at any particular spot and just memorize where that is.
Right.
You know, it's not that difficult. I mean, you know, every string player does it. Every trombonist does it. You know, what's the big
but you've
deal?
got a multi-dimensional trombone there. There's an XY axis. Trombone just has an X axis, right? But you're actually sending notes, changing them this way and that way at the same time.
Well, I suppose, though, I imagine a valve trombonist would have something of a protest to that.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
And you know, what I've been saying at master classes for decades and decades is that, you know, living in the 20th and 21st centuries, we have to have a completely different concept of, you know, what it means to be, I don't know, a bassoonist, what it means to be a cellist, what it means to be a flute player, as that we're members of a worldwide family. And having access to what is going on is something that's very easy now. You know, in 1812, how could a flute player in Paris possibly know what a flute player in Beijing was doing, or vice versa? Well, today, both of them can hear each other with a click. And so I feel then it becomes imperative that we have a responsibility to also do that listening, and that, you know, musicians the world over have things to say to each other. And so, you know, prior to the development of the glissando head joint, you know, there was still, you know, development of a glissando technique, you know. Things like that. And then also in the quest to play the kind of music you want to play, and just not concern yourself with, has anybody played it before? And should a flute player play this? I mean, come on. I mean, what's a ridiculous question? So, you know, I always loved the blues, so I wanted to play the blues, you know. Now, without the glissando head joint and just using what everybody's got on their regular open hole flute, you know, and so, and then of course this gives you much more freedom. You know. So I think that's been kind of the hallmark of music more of our time, because unlike music in earlier eras that was produced by people who could only hear a limited amount of music, we are able to hear virtually an unlimited amount of music, and so those influences, you know, my study of electronic music way back when was, you know, one of the most profound things I did for, you know, for who I became, or who I'm trying to become, you know. So.
Well, but I wanted to reinforce, I think, a point you made that is of tantamount importance to what everybody on this call in this community is doing. You said it's the emotional experience, the feeling experience that the scale system should serve, rather than the other way around. I think microtonal has sometimes served the system, the tuning system, rather than the tuning system or tuning systems serving what is the emotional musical need of the moment. And it shouldn't even be it should be transparent. That's what Irv Wilson always said. He said the scale process should be transparent.
Sure. Well, you know, you're basically delineating the difference between good and bad music. I mean, because let's spin the clock back a little while. What is a bad music was produced by slaves to the chromatic scale. Mm-hmm. And God knows the flute repertoire has got enough of that. They're detritus, and so yes, of course, it's music. You know, this is the sound of the flute.
Nothing.
And you know, it sounds just like a piano, doesn't it? And like a timpani too. All the instruments have exactly the same sound until played. And so music is not made by the instruments. Music is made by people. And so along the way, I mean, it's easy to say this after, you know, 65 years of work, but you know, I remember when I was much younger, and along the way, I was much more concerned with the instrument because I was still, you know, trying to achieve some kind of facility. And I was much more concerned with thinking about, well, how am I going to make a living? And so I did many more, you know, conventional things in those days because that was what was possible. And you know, and sometimes good things came from those experiences, and sometimes, you know, I went home with a little rectangular piece of paper with numbers that were too small on it, and that was that, you know. But sure, I mean, when I think we all have our own way of starting a piece of music. You know, when you hear something or feel something, often I start with a physical feeling, and then I begin to hear something. But if one's starting with, well, I'm going to use, you know, transformations of row P12, point A, well, the prognosis for that being a really great piece of music is kind of low. So, but I don't think that's late breaking news either. No, so anyway, there are a lot of other incredible musical personalities here, and I would like to cede the stage and
Thank you so much, Robert.
You're welcome.
It's really wonderful. really. And when you were with us last week, my thinking was, you guys are beyond being microtonalists because you're world stars. You're featured players and featured composers, and it's just that, I'm going to just end with this if I could. There's a fellow I've come across who's teaching Egyptian maqam on violin. And he said to the microtonal community, you're all wrong. You cannot go by quarter tones. You cannot go by actual tones in a scale in a maqam, because it's so much deeper. It's a bandwidth. It's ornaments that go with it. It's new stuff you add to it, and we're people who go from the armchair. They got a paper that shows them scales, and they work with that. And then there's the opposite side, and then there's the coming together of both, which is really where we are. And good or bad, I'm not sure I would want to be in the position right now to discern, let alone be public about what's good and bad. But I'm sure it exists. And with that, unless there are any other questions or comments, we're going to move to the next person. Michael?
I just wanted to say that about the maqam and what your friend said. I agree with that. I teach it the same way. It's different for each region, but also for any music, Stravinsky, anything. The person playing it, the people representing it aren't just looking at the sheet. They're feeling it and interpreting it, and those are the best players. There's no one way to do it. So, great comment.
Here we're mixing with Robert, not just a player, a composer.
Well, I also want to say, Robert, I've listened. Right, but I've listened to you, Robert, for a few years now after Johnny just flooded me with your brilliance, and I've looked at your your piece to add to the flute. Now, I got to say money for it, but I love it, and your advancements are incredible. So,
well, thanks.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Robert. And now we're going to bring in Helen. Helen Bledsoe. Helen is in Cologne, Köln.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so I believe you know Robert.
Of course. I mean, I have to say, Robert's the reason I'm still playing flute today, probably. Because Robert, honestly, if it hadn't been for you, meeting you when I was young, I would have been bored with my tube a long time ago. I would have been bored. It's true.
Helen, I met you as an American in Germany who is part of what became the Harry Partch world in Europe, which was a nice surprise actually for me in the States, to see Partch instruments being built. And again, there's no flute part in Harry Partch's music, so you found
sometimes you find him. Bewitched has normal instruments in it, and his Delusion of the Fury also has folk flute, Bolivian double flute part in it as well. So
okay,
there's some, but you're right. I'm mostly
the Joy settings. I have, the Joy settings by Partch. They have flute as well.
Yes.
So
that's true.
I was wrong.
That's
when
true.
I said, Stefani about that. It's starting to hit me.
No, that's okay. But yeah. And we're not the only ones with sets of parts instruments in Europe now. They have them, and in Amsterdam, there are groups. There are now several sets of parts instruments throughout Europe. So not only in Cologne.
Excellent.
But
but you're part of a group that does contemporary music in Cologne and famous in Germany and
right.
Europe and the world. And what kind of music are you doing there?
Well, we play all kinds of contemporary music, and I thought that's one of the things I wanted to sort of talk now, because I didn't expect what to prepare for this sort of thing. So, I mean, if you guys are interested, I've got if I can share my screen, I've got my thoughts about not only the stuff I've been playing for the past 10 years, but how I've kind of learned it, sort of teaching materials. I learn yourself or teach. Would that be possible?
Yeah, you have the ability right now. Share screen.
Okay. Let's see what I got here. Let's share sound case. There we go. Let's share this and maybe put it. Actually, I should put it in full screen mode. That's probably as good as it gets. So anyway, well, I can't. Interesting conversation that you started at the end of Robert's session, and that was you know, using non-Western music as sort of maybe a jumping off point into microtonality, because I spent 2 years in Amsterdam studying, and I was very fortunate at that time to meet with Rafael Reina, who had been a student of Jahnavi Jayaprakash in Bangalore. So I spent a lot of masterclasses and several weeks in the summer of the year 2000 in Bangalore, learning how to play the Pulan Kulal, the very thick bamboo South Indian flute. And my eye opener there is that, you know, when you have a scale, there's 72 scales in South Indian, and there are dozens more quote unquote normal, not normal scales. So notes, a scale is not just a series of pitches. I mean, as you guys mentioned, in South Indian music, you not only have to learn the raga, but you have to learn the flavor of the raga. So, you know, a raga will have not only maybe an interval between a major and a minor second, but you have to have a certain ornament on that. Otherwise, it's not the raga, it's just wrong. So it sort of brought in another layer of expressivity into microtones. And I love this kind of thing, which is why sometimes I have problems with Western composed microtonality, because I mean, quarter-tones seem so sterile to me. You know, it's also a kind of equal temperament, you know, just dividing up unnaturally something into half tones or even quarter tones. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox and about that, and maybe just talk about what I plan to talk about. So what you can see, what I've written here on my screen, you know, there are many approaches to that I've had to deal with, the vertical and the horizontal. And by exotic, I also mean like non-Western music that's not harmonic or polyphonic. That's more, what's the word? Monophonic, like Indian music and other sort of melodically based instruments, pieces. Now I made this little thing here because this, I don't know if you can see all of this in your full screen, but these are some of the composers I've worked with in the last like 10 years, and I've got Harry Parch smack in the middle. Because I mean, he does the just intonation. He uses, you know, whole tone ratios for his melodic and his harmonic stuff. You know, he consciously uses non-Western studies based on his pieces on ancient Greek tuning systems. And I've got another category here that I called speech, which is another thing that Harry Parch really opened up. And that's because another reason he was so intent on smashing 12-tone equal temperament is because it doesn't reflect the human voice. It doesn't reflect speech patterns. It doesn't reflect speech melodies, which is, you know, why he developed, you know, what's the viola, the adapted viola that's played like a cello, that can accompany the voice. And I have had, this is one of my favorite ways of using microtonality, is to reflect speech. And I think it's also the reason that the blues, you know, you have those blues intervals because they also reflect more of the natural speech singing than, you know, equal tempered thirds, you know, major and minor. Now I've got, in this little speech bubble here, I've got 3 composers I've listed who've written pieces for me, like in the past 10 years. I don't know if you know these names: Rebecca Saunders, Petros Obsepian, who's an Armenian composer, and Jorge Apergis, who's a Greek composer living in Paris. And Rebecca Saunders is also living in Berlin. She's a British composer. I'll move right along to that because I'm not set up to play for you guys. I just thought what I would do is I'll talk briefly about these 3 pieces that were sort of written for me, and the links to the recordings, if they're there, are there. And I'm sure I've got the this is the first page of the score, just for you to look at and see how that looks. Have a look at that, and I'll move right along the next one. This is a piece for piccolo that includes a lot of singing. And Jorge took this speech stuff very seriously. He took a poem by Edward Lear, The Dawn with the Luminous Nose, and I have to recite most of the poem, sing and recite the poem. So the music is really highly microtonal, and I'm singing in the same range as the piccolo, which is just crazy. But yeah, so it's very, as you can tell, very small intervals, singing a regular interval and very close intervals around it. It's really cool. And this other piece by Petros of Sapien, he took not any kind of text, but he uses a lot of speech sounds, almost the entire range of consonants you can imagine, and using them very in a very quiet way. He's a composer of very quiet extremes and very loud extremes. So his use of microtonality is also very speech-based in that respect. So if you guys want, I can give you a link to this presentation, and you can listen to it. And are there any questions? Because I want to show just briefly a couple of learning tools, but then there are questions first. I'll stop sharing my screen for a sec. If there are any questions.
Yes, do please add to the chat. Put that in the chat, and we can make sure everyone here.
I didn't have the chat open. Okay,
and also the other board members.
It's not so much a question. I just wanted to express excitement. I really appreciate seeing the speech emphasis here and speech to spectral. It's definitely what roped me into microtonality, and I'm just very excited to listen to those links. So thank you so much.
Sure.
I noticed Julio Estrada in Mexico does work with this, what he imagines to be a pre-Hispanic culture that uses very much some of these sounds and consonants. And we'll have a fellow here, Alejandro Escuer, who due to COVID couldn't be here in person. He had to run from Mexico City to get a booster to go to France with no notice today. I mean, it's amazing what people are doing to travel. But he has a piece we'll be playing later that is so much of what you're talking about. So it's like it's like a whole avenue for flute. And of course, Jane was dealing with that as well, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Any questions or comments?
I love your Venn diagram.
Thanks.
Anything that resembles a map of microtonal territory, I'm interested in, because there's so much data to parse. It's interesting to see how you put that together.
Yeah. Well, it's not comprehensive at all. It's I mean, there are thousands of composers that could be named and put in there. But it's great. I think it was good. It's important to show the where they overlap, because it's really difficult to categorize. And as a composer and as an improviser, I don't think whether I'm thinking vertically or horizontally. I think both at the same time. So no. So
beautiful work. I can't wait to hear more of what you're doing.
Okay. Well, thanks so much. Maybe you guys and gals probably maybe some of these things already. It's written for me, but it's of Anne Clear, who also, the reason I'll just mention this briefly, a lot of her microtonality in this piece is based on multiphonic fingerings, which I think are really cool. And actually I wanted to ask Robert about, because when you fork fingerings and you make really odd microtone, you mess with the length of the tube, right? So it doesn't overblow the normal harmonic series. It blows out of tune, giving us, you know, a really rich multiphonic. So these out of tune notes are sort of the basis for her piece. And what I wanted to ask Robert, if I just may interject a question here, when you have the glissando flute joint, flute head joint, right, and you're pulled out as long as you can, the tube is no longer correct, right? And that makes the overtone series isn't going to blow not like a whole octave and then a whole fifth. It'll blow something weird and exciting, probably.
No, that's not true.
No?
Well, you know, you can, it's so easy to make little interruptions in the air column that will produce those things. So for example, if I've, so I'm fingering a low B, I've pulled it all the way out, we've got a low A now. Now, so you get the same, it's the open pipe, it's just an open pipe series. But of course, you know, as in all, you know, other multiphonics, you could alter that. And because the length of air is longer, you don't have access to things you wouldn't get otherwise. So,
thanks for that.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. So one of the ways that I've tried to learn intervals is through loading up synthesizers. I don't know if you're familiar with, they're free software synthesizers that you can put on your computer, and you can load up different tuning systems into them. And one way of doing that is to load up Scala files. So I'll give you an example here. This is this is a synthesizer I got up here. Hang on. Can you see the synthesizer I have? Yes, no?
No, just the
No, okay.
tools.
Okay, hang on. There you go. I think you can see it now, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So what you've got, this is a really cool free synthesizer where you can go and load different tuning systems into it. You got this here. Oops, not it. Right, you can load a tuning file into it, and once you do that, if you've got tuning files loaded up, you just go into your system and you load. You can load up Parch's 43 note per octave scale, and then basically turn your keyboard into a chromelodian, which was Parch's keyboard instrument that he used to base his 43 notes to the octave tuning on. You have to transpose the middle C to G. That's also really easy to do with these pitch transpose very easily. So using virtual synthesizers, I think, is one great way of learning these pitches. And the other thing, hang on just a quick sec. There's something that's called the tuning menu. He's an English living in, and he's developed this. This is not free software. You have to pay a license. It's like $45, but it's really worth it because unlike the synthesizer where you have to play something, this is sort of a no hands thing. So you can push and play, and then play your flute and tune to it. And what you've got here is each of the whole tone relationships. You can put them, you can play them simultaneously or as chords, and then, you know, you can listen to the chords and tune that way, have the flute in your hand. So it's been a very good way, and you can see the relationships very easily. It even has two, this is the flower arrangement, and this is the grape arrangement. We'll also show it has a more like high to low series. I won't get into it. You can download it yourself with a free demonstration and check it out for yourself. But if you're really into learning just intonation intervals, this is a really great tool. It's a when I share the link with you, the link to that is in my presentation, which I'll share with you guys. So are there any questions about that so far? Because that's really all I have to say, unless you have questions.
That's good, and we could have questions later. I mean, as we move on, it's great that, you know, panelists can talk to each other, and we have our MOO people asking questions, and we also have less extroverted MOO people who I'd love to encourage to, you know, step forward and ask some questions. And it's just that you guys are providing such material, so much material, that probably will hold on that. So thank you so much, Helen.
I enjoyed
Bruce. Oh, Anton.
Yeah, I just want. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to amplify what you're saying. This is exactly what I do all the time. My extended flute extends into computer applications. There are softwares like the Magic Microtuner, for instance, and libraries of all kinds of tunings which you can upload. So it's a very useful way to learn. It's all about learning how to hear. And in fact, it's very difficult and time consuming. The most amazing piece I've heard in this regard was from about, I guess it was about 20 years ago. Lamont Young wrote the piece Just Charles for the cellist Charles Curtis. And I was listening to him play and I said, wow, it's amazing. He's nailing those intervals. But then I realized that the reason he could nail those intervals was that he had all of the reference tones happening in Lamont Young's electronic score. It's a constant learning process with these different tunings. When you imagine doing that with, you know, 31 division of the octave scales, it's dizzying just to think about it. But yeah, it's a fascinating and really useful ear training adventure, at least.
Anton has a question. I'd like you to let him have a chance, but the next person only has a few minutes. They're on a train.
My question is really quick. I enjoyed your presentation. I was very interested in hearing those pieces by those composers you mentioned. If you can share the names and the titles, maybe on the chat, I'd be great. That'd be grateful. I'm really interested in hearing music, especially in your performance. That's my question.
Okay, thanks. I'll try to get the link as soon as possible. I'm trying to get out of this mode, but
okay. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And terrific, actually. And just now we have just a moment. I just was able to capture, you know, the attention of somebody who's like, you know, traveling today from Zurich. Are you there? I don't even want to say your name correctly.
Hello, everyone. Hi.
Hi.
Good evening.
Could you say your name?
My name is Nuriya. Nuriya. Yes.
Nuriya, I met you in Odessa, and you were with an improv group from Zurich. And,
yes.
I remember your saxophonist really well. Hey, you were doing things where you were always physically moving, and of course we can't see that right now.
Yes. I'm sorry.
But
yes.
You know, what's your take on intonation in terms of anything that's not, you know, standard classical?
Well, for me, I think it started also from this idea, like the experimentation, I would say, rather, because we have a collective that are based in Zurich. We are based in Zurich, but we also from everywhere. So I'm from Russia, and Kay that you mentioned, she's a saxophonist from Australia, and Leo Collin, who is a French composer. And I think so our meeting point was this idea of how to present contemporary music also to bigger audience who are not, who have no idea about what is it contemporary music, and basically that's how we started to work. And yes, I think it's, for me, it's really a lot of experimenting and and maybe going out of comfort zone. Which
I
means
see,
also
you're almost acrobatic when you play.
well, it's really depends on the theme or what we're working on together. And yes, it's true. Me personally, I really enjoy also repertoire which involves movements and and yes, physical involvement. Yes.
If you have any links that you could give us in the chat, we'd really appreciate that, because I know what you do is really different from everyone else.
Yes, we have also a website of our collective. It's a collectivetotem.com. That's our also website, and we have some videos and yes, some tutorials. Let's say. Yes.
Could you maybe tell us some of your influences?
Oh, it's really everything. I think the over information, the digital information that we like this, the world we live now, and of course great composers like John Cage and yes, a bit of like everyone really. We also enjoy working with people who not only musicians but also multidisciplinary artists. So we're really trying to connect now local scene by we have a series of, we call it Detox Show, which is basically like 3 to 4 days residency. And like this, we get to know the person we invite, our guest, and also it's a chance, also perhaps for composer or multi or transdisciplinary artist to try out something new, and also like this to exchange experiences and knowledge.
Could I ask you a quick question? How do you spell the name of your group? Because I just went to Totem, TOTEM.com, and got something completely different.
Oh, I will try. Maybe I will try to add it in the chat.
Okay.
Give me a moment. Yes, one moment.
But I had said to Nuriya that she's really into physical playing, so she could play on the train, and and so she's juggling right now.
Well, that's the fun part, isn't it? Yes, especially after 1 year of absence of events, and of course lack of social contact. I think this is really, well, now it seems like it's going back slowly, unfortunately, but still there is this need in seeing people, being with people, and yes.
Well, you're with 29 people right now.
Oh yes, I cannot. Can you see me? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, we can't see.
Oh, wait a moment. Yes.
Oh,
hello.
Hi.
Hello, everyone. I cannot somehow see. Yes, it's great. It's a really pleasure to be here on distance, and I'm calling from the train.
Right, and if you played flute in the train, you would get maybe unwanted attention. I don't know, but.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for making the effort. I don't want to use that word loosely. You really made the effort. I appreciate that so much.
Oh, it's really, thank you very much. Yes, and great to see everyone. Yes.
Thank you so much.
And nice meeting you. Thank you, Johnny.
Take care. Pleasure.
Have a nice evening. Yeah, I don't know what time is it now are you calling from States, right?
Yeah, but everybody's in a different time zone. We're all over the world here, like your group. This
Sure.
is very much like your group.
It's now. It's always now.
It's now.
Yes.
Thank you.
So cool. Thank you. All right,
Thanks a
so
lot.
we will now go to the next person. You're welcome to stay and listen if you can, of course. The next person I'd like to invite is Jorge Echevarria. Are you here, Jorge? Yes. And now you have to unmute.
Ahora sí. Hola.
Hello. So where are you?
Bien, fine.
Where are you? In Mexico City.
Mexico City.
Mexico City, sí.
And you have a quarter-tone flute.
Quarter-tone.
Sí, es una flauta en cuartos de tono. Está modificada gracias a la obra del maestro Julián Carrillo, del sonido 13.
This flute has been modified in quarter tones by the Carrillo system, Master Julián Carrillo.
Voy a mostrar, aquí esta flauta tiene una modificación en la parte de la embocadura, en la parte trasera de la embocadura, que es la que nos ayuda a producir los cuartos de tono.
This flute has been modified to produce these quarter tones. And in this part, you can see the different measure that was adapted to produce this tone.
Tiene dos llaves para poder abrir la perforación, una con la mano derecha y otra con la mano izquierda.
It has two different keys for opening the holes.
Voy a hacer una demostración de lo que es el tono y luego divido medio tono y después en cuarto de tono.
This is a demonstration with tones, half tones, and quarter tones.
Esta flauta produce 24 sonidos en la octava.
This flute produces 24 sounds per 8.
Voy a mostrar los 24 sonidos.
I will show the 24 different sounds.
Aquí tenemos ya también un sistema de escritura.
Here we have a script system.
A base de números, utilizamos tantos números en orden progresivo.
This system is based on progressive numbers.
Como tantos sonidos se vayan a emplear.
According to each different sound.
Si tenemos 12 sonidos,
if we have 12 sounds,
del 0 al 11,
from 0 to 11,
si tenemos cuartos de tono del 0 al 23,
in quarter tones from 0 to 23,
y en 16avos de tono, que tenemos instrumentos que producen 16avos de tono del 0 al 95.
And in 16 tones from 0 to 95.
Voy a hacer una pequeña pieza, algo sencillo, para que ustedes escuchen.
I will play a short song for you to listen.
Tenemos varias flautas, hemos modificado varias flautas con este sistema.
We have different flutes that have been modified under this Carrillo system.
Hemos hecho también algunas marimbas en cuartos de tono.
We have elaborated marimba in quarter tones.
En marimba con ciclos de 78 sonidos en octava.
Marimba in 78 sounds per 8.
Aproximadamente podríamos comentar que serían treceavos de tono.
In 13 tones.
Tenemos arpas que producen también 16avos de tono.
We have the R in 16 tones.
Y todos estos instrumentos
and all these instruments
los combinamos con instrumentos de origen antiguo, de la época de los aztecas, de los mayas, de la época prehispánica.
Are combined to produce music with different instruments, pre-Hispanic instruments from Aztecs and these civilizations, antique civilizations.
Bueno, también cabe mencionar que hemos hecho guitarras también en cuartos de tono,
guitars
modificadas.
And also in quarter tones.
Y tenemos también, hemos hecho algunas guitarras y flautas basándonos bueno, aquí manejamos lo que es prácticamente el razonamiento matemático.
And some guitars and flutes in which we transport to mathematical system for script.
Basándonos en la raíz dosada de 2, hacemos la subdivisión desde tercios hasta 16avos de tono.
Based on 2/12 root, we made script from thirds to 16 tones. This is the way they use to measure the different sounds.
Pero también tenemos flautas y guitarras que no están afinadas en este sistema, sino manejamos intervalos como nos los da la ley física del sonido, que son intervalos diferentes, no hay dos intervalos iguales, sino son diferentes que van de mayor a menor conforme más agudos se van haciendo.
And we also have flutes and guitars that are based in natural sounds according to the different shortening scale of nature. This means as we go lowering the scale, the sounds are different. This can be measured by a special system that requires these microtones.
Aquí cabe mencionar que algo interesante es que ya tenemos para poder hacer esta música, ya tenemos un sistema de escritura y podemos repetirla a voluntad cuantas veces quieramos.
In this special system, we have script so that you can produce the same theme as many times as you want. This is completely script and in Carrillo system. We are going to show the art. This is based on the same system in 16 tones in the 8. So this art produces 98 sounds.
Pregúntale si se ve la.
Can you see the instrument from there? Is it possible for you to see the instrument? This is the art.
Yes. Yes, we see.
En esta parte de aquí tiene lo que conocemos el índice 5.
In this part, you have the 5 index from here to here.
En esta parte está la subdivisión para el índice 6.
In this part, we managed to produce index 6.
El arpa gira y aquí tenemos la cuerda vibrando de su completa longitud
Here you have the chord that is going to vibrate in its large shape and
y aquí tenemos el índice 4.
and all this part produces an index 4.
El 0 es Do,
From Do, 0,
16 Re,
Re, 16,
32 Mi,
Mi, 32,
40 Fa,
Fa, 40,
56 Sol,
Sol, 56,
72 La,
72 La,
88 Si,
88 Si,
0,
0,
nuevamente Do.
Do.
Cada 4 sonidos son cuartos de tono,
Each 4 sounds you have quarter tones.
cada 2 son octavos de tono
Each 2 sounds you have 8 tones.
y cada uno 16avos de tono.
Each sound 16 tones.
A grandes rasgos, esto es lo que venimos trabajando nosotros ya aproximadamente desde hace 40 y tantos años, como 43 años.
So this is the system that we have been managing to produce since 40 years ago.
¿Está bien? Okay.
Thank you. Gracias.
Igualmente.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Robert.
I think every flute player here is wondering what I'm wondering, which is the keys that appear to be on the head joint. What do they do? I could see something moving, but I couldn't see what was actually happening.
Okay. Hay veces que tenemos ocupada, por ejemplo, la mano derecha o izquierda en un chord sostenido.
Sometimes, for example, you're using your right hand with a sol.
Yeah.
Or staying sol.
Ok, entonces para poder hacer el cuarto de tono, esta llave es la que abre esta tapa para producir los cuartos de tono.
Oh, okay.
Aquí esta llave lo que hace es abrir.
The key opens the lid. Yes, the key over there opens this lid so that you can produce the quarter tone.
Y aquí esta llave que está acá.
Yeah.
Esta que está aquí, la que está arriba de la llave de sol sostenido.
That is above.
Abre también la perforación de los cuartos de tono. O sea que si yo tengo todos los dedos en re sostenido,
this key opens the other hole. So if you have all your fingers in this position,
okay.
The key and open the little hole here with the lid.
Oh. Okay, thank you. That's very clever.
Could you hold your flute up to the screen, the whole flute, and maybe slowly make it cross the screen, like the other direction? Slowly, keep going. All the way. Yeah, slow.
Despacito.
Keep going.
Keep going, sigue.
Maybe tilt it.
Oh. Johnny, you're interrupting, and now we don't see the flute.
You don't see the flute?
No, we see you, Johnny, because you were talking.
Actually, that'll be in the video. Don't worry.
Okay. Well, there we go.
Okay, we are going to continue talking so that you can be able to see to watch the flute. Okay. Te habla para que vean la flauta.
¿Que hable yo?
Sí. Y algo para que aparezca la flauta, porque si
bueno.
no aparece ahí.
Aquí está la perforación de los cuartos de tono. Esta es la perforación que abre para que fugue el aire y produzca los cuartos de tono. En esta parte tenemos la llave que abre los cuartos de tono. Aquí tenemos la parte que viene.
The key that for opening the lid for the quarter tones.
Aquí ya tenemos las llaves para la mano izquierda y derecha para abrir los cuartos de tono.
Here we have the different keys for left and right hand to open the quarter tone system.
Y como bien comentabas hace rato, con esta flauta puedes tocar cualquier tipo de composición.
And as you were explaining in your intervention, with this flute, you can produce all different sounds from nature according to quarter tones.
Cool.
Okay, thank you.
¿Y su arpa era construido por Oscar Vargas Leal?
Sí, yo estudié con Oscar Vargas y con Lolita Carrillo. A mí me tocó todavía convivir con Oscar Vargas Leal.
En Cuernavaca.
En Cuernavaca.
En Cuernavaca.
Sí, ahí aprendimos con él a hacer las arpas y hemos hecho, pues con él trabajamos varias arpas. Esta es una de las que trabajamos ahí con él.
Lo visité hace 13 años.
Sí, sí, no, pues nosotros estuvimos con él desde ahí por los finales de los 70s. Ahí fue cuando conocimos el trabajo de Oscar y pues a partir de ahí pues ya estuvimos estudiando con Lolita y con David también.
I met Oscar in the 70s, and since then we were working with Lolita Carrillo under this system.
Oh, increíble.
Anybody here who doesn't know about the Carrillo tradition in Mexico, that this is all coming from?
Alguien que no sabe.
Everybody's familiar with it. That's terrific.
Que todos están familiarizados con esto.
Bueno, mira, fíjate que no toda la gente. Nosotros hemos estado luchando por hacer una escuela de sonido 13, pero no hay mucha apertura.
We have been fighting as warriors to create a school in which we can teach this special system.
Pero ahorita precisamente estamos en vías de mandando un proyecto de un plan de estudios del sonido 13 a una institución a ver si podemos desarrollar esta escuela.
And in this moment we are trying to send this technique, this system in a program for schools worldwide.
Y claro que si hablamos de los 70s, pues nadie conocía o muy poca gente conocía a Carrillo. Ahorita ya hay más gente que le interesa aprender este sistema.
In the 70s, Carrillo was unknown, and nowadays, fortunately, many people know about this Mexican musician, Julián Carrillo.
Y si alguien quiere alguna flauta o algún instrumento, ya sea para que lo modifiquemos o se lo construyamos, nosotros podemos hacer.
And if somebody wants a special flute or instrument to be modified, we can do this for you. In microtones, microtonal instruments.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Unless there are any other comments or questions, anyone?
Yes, could you, I'm not familiar, could you write the name of it? And I'd also like to know what I see it now, Carrillo harp. Yes, Richie answered, thanks, Richie. Okay, thank you, it was great.
Okay.
And I see Ivan is here, and Ivan, of course, plays with you percussion. I know Ivan wants to say hello to you. Is he still here?
Ivana?
He was here. There he is.
Hello. Hola, Jorge, ¿cómo estás?
Bien, mano, muy bien. ¿Y tú? ¿Quién eres?
Pues me da gusto verte aquí. Bueno, estamos aquí. My English is not good. Sorry, I said, hello, everybody.
Hola.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And we are going to move to the next person now. Stay with us. And the next person is Stuart Quimby. There's Stuart. Stuart and I have never met, but when I put out the fingerography, Stuart came up with this brilliant spreadsheet of fingerings where, you know, I know he plays in clubs. He's an improviser in upstate New York, but he found an interest in, like, let's say, take the note F, finding every note in the bandwidth of F, like, you know, higher and lower, just based on what the fingers can do, like having like just travailed all possibilities of what the hand can do, and then write it out as a fingering chart, and we published it for people to play with. Stuart, tell us about it.
Hi, I'll be brief. Most of you don't know me, but actually, Johnny, I did come to your apartment when I first showed you the chart.
Ah, yeah, my mom.
And other than that, hi, Stefani. We go way back. I came into Parch's music in about 76, which I found extremely irritating because I'd spent years studying music theory in school and found out that I had to unlearn a lot of it to kind of reground myself. I started building additional instruments, hacked a bunch of acoustic guitars up, pasting on frets, trying to make different sounds. This would be late 70s, early 80s. So, you know, before adequate synthesizers and before the internet. My housemate at the time, Pete Wheel, and I built a Chromelodian, fully working Chromelodian, 43 notes per octave, which is over at his house in Madison, Wisconsin. Then I machined a guitar fretboard with movable frets. Each individual fret can come off and be replaced wherever you want. The whole thing just bolts on to replace the normal fretboard, which was somewhat successful. It was a little hard to play unless you had precise classical technique, or the strings would slide off of the small frets. Also started, oh, and I'd mention, Robert, I'm almost sure that you wouldn't remember me, but in Creative Music Studio days, you and I had 2 or 3 sessions together in your cabin.
Oh, okay.
That would be like 79 or 80, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yes, well, your name was ringing a bell, but now I know what bell it was.
So the chart, you probably have to go into speaker mode in order to see this adequately. This is the chart that Johnny's referring to. And as he said, what I was trying to do was not to be based on any individual scale, but try to represent every single pitch that the standard C flute could produce, and every variation of that pitch. And I believe the most, second and third octave are the most prolific, and I believe there's about 118 different pitches that I was able to come up with. And this, again, pre-computer, I was working at, I don't know if you all know Woodstock Percussion. They make the Woodstock wind chimes, those long silver tubes, wildly copied now all over the world, except Gary Kivistad was the first one who created them, and they're all very, very perfectly in tune. So I created the algorithm that ran the machinery that built his tubes and tuned them. So I've been involved in acoustics and psychoacoustics for a long, long time. And right around that time, he loaned me what at the time was the state of the art. It was like a $8,000 tuner from Hewlett Packard, this enormous, enormous machine that was just to represent pitches. I think it had like 5 decimal places of accuracy. And I spent 9 months with that in my apartment, cataloging all of the pitches. So the central part here is every single pitch combination, listed with cents on the edge, drawing down to on this side of the chart, the just intonation ratios, which show chord arrangements from all, I think, the 7 limit. So every single chord and arpeggio that you can make on the 7 limit. And then on this far side, I have EDO of 53, 31, 24, and 19. So this was many, many, many years ago. I'm currently in the process of transcribing. I'm going to do a share screen here.
Is that fingerography available online anywhere?
Well, that's what I'm doing right now is I'm going to show you, how do I get this to show a file? Oh, I got to bring up the file. Duh. I'm not a Zoom person. Can you all see that?
No.
I'm not sharing the screen?
No.
Yeah, you're not sharing the screen.
Now we see something maybe.
Hold on. Bear with me 1 second. Oh, what happened there? It was up there for a second. How does that look?
Yes.
So as
Looks
many
great.
people, I'm sorry?
Just that it looks great.
Oh, thank you. As many people have mentioned, there is no such thing as really precise pitches from fingerings. When I first did this, I was, I think, in my 20s, and I was going after something extraordinarily precise. But as I got deeper and deeper into it, I found that between lip bending and the pitch differences between flutes, I did mine on I have a Jack Moore from 1975 with a C foot. It was important to me to use something that is the most standard flute out there. So you didn't have to become some specialist in order to explore this kind of range. There's distinct disadvantages, of course, as you go up the scale. I don't know if you could call it chromatically when there's 118 pitches. There's wildly different tonal variations that occur. Some of them are very solid. And you make your own aesthetic choices based on that. So I'll post a link to my email in the chat. And as soon as this is done, it is not. I had it almost done, and then Google changed the way they link to graphics, and it ate most of my work. And so I'm recreating it again. But once that's done, up at the top here, you see all of the graphics primitives with the idea that you can go and explore on your own. And then, like, if my fingering doesn't work, cut and paste, well, it's not just a rim press, it's got to be open hole for there. Cut and paste an open hole, and you've got your own customized flute chart. The other thing I'm doing, instead of, okay, how do I unshare my screen here? Oh, stop share. There we go. I'm setting up the chart so you can pick how many other divisions of the octave that you want. So you say you want 19 or 31 or 53 EDO. You can just either click on a tab. I'm not quite sure how I'll automate it, but it'll eliminate all of the extraneous fingerings, and you'll just be looking at the scale that you like. Anyway, other than that, I compose. I'm working on a piece right now for 32 flutes in 31 EDO. The flutes are divided up into 8 quartets that surround the audience peripherally, like the points of the compass, ordinate and subordinate points of the compass. The audience sits in concentric circles facing outward, and the conductor dead in the middle where all the players can see him. They're all C flutes. I'm not using bass or alto or contrabass. I'm looking for a kind of monochromatic saturation of sound. And the idea being to use it as kind of like a human pipe organ, because I'm not going to get 32 excellent microtonal players all in one room at the same time, at least not with the budget that I have. So my idea, maybe I could pull in 4 or 5 horses, as they say, and then disperse the microtonal duties to some other players. And of course, all of the fingerings will be notated. I do it all in Lily Pond, which produces separate scores and a MIDI file. So anyone who's practicing would have the exact pitches that for their part to practice. Anyway, that's been 2 years of effort. And so far I've discovered that actually doing harmony in 31 notes per octave is much more difficult than I thought. I'm used to, as Johnny pointed out, playing in clubs where I incorporate a whole lot of microtonal techniques in my jazz playing. But I've just been inside out 12 tones per octave. I know I kind of just grok it, you know, and I found out that 31, I didn't want it to be just like bland tonal studies. So I didn't want it to be some experimental thing. I wanted it to actually be rich and vibrant and, you know, have some guts to it. So I've stepped back and I'm basically immersing myself in 31, which is just, it's not better than anything else. It's just I can use the 5-note stave, the 5-line stave for it, and it's got pretty good representations on my flute chart where the tones are primarily pretty solid. So any questions? That's who I am and what I've been up to.
Carry on.
Yeah, that's absolutely great. So I have this a question about those charts. So they will be available someday, if I understand you correctly.
Yeah, in fact, I'll put up a link to my email right now.
Okay, great.
In the chat, and you can just email me. Maybe .ch.
Okay, cool. Joel Mandelbaum is here. Joel, did you want to say something? Because you're, you know,
Yeah,
pretty well known for 31 tone.
I wanted to suggest to Stuart, looking for harmonies in 31, I found building on the ratio 6-7, which is C to D sharp, putting them on top of one another, and also making the septimal minor chord that way, and also using it to unevenly bisect a perfect force, are very good in 31 tone. I just wanted to offer that to you. I've done quite a bit of work in 31, and those are the things that I have found. You know, they resonate. They're not that different from the harmonies of traditional music, but they have that new element, and those septimal intervals and the building up of 6-7 on top of each other. You build up 4 of the 3 intervals, 4 notes. You've got a just a major 6th. But you have a chord that's quite new, and you put another one up and you have a major 7th. I found this to be a very usable harmonic field that is different from anything you have before, but doesn't take the music so far away from where people can enjoy it.
Right.
Thank you, Joel.
Well, thanks for that. I'll look up your work.
Okay.
Stuart, do you have any performances? There may be a jazz performance, even a club performance where you have a lot of microtonal activity that you could send to the chat?
Not, well, I did a performance last night, but other than that, I have a quartet down in the city, New York City, called M2Q. But unfortunately, my pianist became very, very like long-term illness. So that's been quieted down. And then I have another quartet upstate called The Quartet, rather redundantly. But since COVID and since my drummer had a baby and a new family, as well as my bass player, we've been kind of quiet on that front as well. But I'm hoping we'll get that back together again.
Well, I would love to.
There's one problem. We don't see your email. I think you send it like directly to somebody, not to like everyone in the chat, because we don't see it.
The image of the flute chart?
No, your email address.
Oh, not just, it's in the chat.
Yeah, but it's he says it's not to everyone, it's just to one person.
Yeah, like.
Oh,
like
I'm
I
sorry.
can
I'm
send it
sorry.
to
Yes, I
someone.
get you now. Okay, hold on. I don't use Zoom very much. I'm a security analyst for network security, and
I also have a question.
Yes, Nuriya.
sure.
Yes. I was wondering, like, it sounds really interesting. Also, your piece for how many flutes you said? 32.
32.
Yes. Do you have maybe also in our compositions like that where we could maybe listen to it or see?
No,
have a
not
website?
microtonally. I mean, I've done other compositions, but they're all hand done on paper, and I don't have a scanner, so.
Right.
But
Yeah, it sounds quite interesting also.
I was hoping with the 8 quartets surrounding the audience that you can start to do some spatial things. I used to play in the Baroque where you do the piece of the orchestra down on the floor and the one up in the balcony, and they're call and response with the loud and the soft. And I always like those kind of spatial differences where you can really use the room. So.
So the Antiphonal and the Henry Brandt, was he an influence for you?
No.
He's very much music in the round, where audience is in the middle and music is around them.
What's his name again?
Henry Brandt.
Oh, that's a familiar name, but no, I haven't looked him up lately. I'll have to look him up.
Might be something around your.
Henry Brandt wrote a bunch of stuff for large flute ensembles.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yes, you could look. I think the New York Flute Club recorded a whole.
It's good to see you, Stefani.
Yeah, nice to see you.
And nice to see you show so much more than we actually published, I think. When we did the fingering chart, I don't think we had equal divisions.
I'm not sure. We had to chop the whole thing up into pieces in order to get it into the format of the journal. So I don't have my copy anymore. I can't remember.
Well, I can get it for you. And also people have been, asking for it for years now. So I do send out the fingerography. So definitely a lot of people have gotten it over all this time.
And I trust everyone can see my email now. Yes?
Yes.
Sure. I just wanted to chime in. The archivalry that you've done with the fingering is just amazing. I'm really excited to send you an email and, of course, have it directly. I'm curious in that I've had this discussion with many other people who post on something like the Zen Harmonic Wiki system, which is kind of like Wikipedia, and we can all add and subtract and edit. Can we have, if it's something that you're not making commercially available, to have something like a fingering wiki system where musicians can add to that, so we kind of cover the full sense within the octave. And
sure. Well, it's in a Google spreadsheet, and the graphics primitives are embedded up front, so I'll share it editable. I'm not doing it commercially. I'm just gonna make it available.
Sure. That's awesome. Yeah. I'm really excited to continue to be in touch and hope that more and more composers and flute players access this.
Sure. Well, thank you. Same with me.
Well, thank you, Stuart. Pleasure.
Great
work. Great work.
Really. I'd like to now invite our next panelist, Anna Friederike Potengowski. Are you here?
Mute. Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I hear you. We don't see you yet, will we?
Yes, I will try to allow this to my computer. So here I am. Hello,
okay.
There.
Hi, so you're in Berlin?
Yes, I am. And it's 9 p.m. here.
Okay, we're
About
getting
9
late.
p.m.
You're going to be our last live person, except for Bruce, who's going to end. Because we're going to hear a big 17-minute piece at the very end, for those who can see it, And we get a chance, first of all, to talk with Bruce, but we want to talk to you first, Anna. And Anna, I just by pure kismet, I found this email from you from years ago. You were a friend of Ted Kuntz, who was the previous president of the AFMM. And you are doing work with Pleistocene era flutes.
Yes, with Paleolithic instruments. So we can't be sure about if this were really flutes. I will tell you about this, but I am playing them as flutes.
Okay, well,
okay.
Do a presentation on this. We'd love to see.
Okay, I will try to share the screen. Select, allow. Oh. Do you have to allow me to share the screen?
No, you have the permission.
Okay, allow. Can you see something now?
Yes, we have it.
Okay, from the beginning. And this little window you can see too on here. Can I put this away? Okay. Okay, I'm going to tell about wind instruments from the Swabian Aurignacian. So Swabia, this is a region in southern Germany, and Aurignacian, this is the oldest archaeological culture, I would say, of the Upper Paleolithic. So maybe in simple words, this is Stone Age instruments. And for several excavations, as you can see here, the names Susanne Münzel and Nicholas J. Connard did discover these instruments. Maybe next slide does not work. Here, just an overview, because this is also or had been the time of the last ice age, so people at that time had a lot of time to...
A different slide, because we only see the edge of time and your email address, I suppose.
Oh, I will start it from the beginning again, or I will share again. I stop sharing.
Okay, but are you doing like a presentation? I mean, like a full screen, because we see the PowerPoint window.
Yeah.
The editor, not like the presentation, full screen presentation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I did full screen presentation. So now you see the editor, right?
Yeah, we see the editor. Yeah.
Okay, and now I'm starting the whole slideshow from the beginning, full screen.
Started.
Does it work now?
No, we don't see it. We only see the
if not,
editor.
okay, then but if I change in the editor the slides, you can see this. If I change it,
we
then I will just use the editor.
Yeah.
Does this work? Okay. So next slide is this. So this is just a little bit small, but it is an overview of the landscape around. This is important because of the these instruments had been found in caves, and they are named after the caves where they were found, like Geisenklosterle Cave and Hohlefels Cave, as you maybe can see here with the red dots. And in the background, you can see the glaciated Alps. So what I wanted to say is people at that time, at the end of the last ice age, had to spend very long winter times in those caves to be safe there and warm enough. So they had a lot of time to, obviously, to create something. Just a short view here, you can see pictures of those caves, Geisenklosterle Cave here, and the entrance of Hohlefels Cave and Vogelherd Cave. So, and since we have not enough time, I just want to skip over to present the original findings. So the first find made by Susanne Münzel was, she is how do we say in English? Archaeozoologue. So she gets only those bones on her table and has to decide which animal it is. And she got a radius of a whooper swan with slightly perforated holes on it. And since she was a musician, a flutist on her own, she said this might have been a flute, maybe. So this has been the first find. Am I still in? Do you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you, and we see the pictures of.
Okay, okay. Because I can't see me. I just was unsure about this. So the second find was an instrument made of mammoth ivory, so of mammoth tusk. This one here. There's not enough time to explain the chain operatoire, so how this instrument has been constructed, because this is really interesting. Mammoth ivory isn't hollow from nature, so they had to hollow it out, and this is a very sophisticated process to produce an instrument at that time. And the next very interesting find has been made from a radius of a griffon vulture. So radius means you have the wing of the bird, and there are two bones inside and the smaller ones. So they are, do you see the camera? Can you see the instrument if I hold it here?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
So with the instruments with a very, very small diameter, less than a centimeter. And these instruments are the oldest clear evidence of musical activity of the Homo sapiens worldwide. So, but it's not possible. And as you can see, none of these instruments has been found complete. They lack at least one end. So for the whooper swan instrument, you can see the bottom is preserved, but the other end isn't preserved. For the mammoth ivory instrument, there is one end preserved with a notch. Might have been also another finger hole, but there are cutting marks there. So I believe this had been a notched flute like the Kena. And the Hohlefels instrument, you can see is clearly broken on the fifth hole, and the other end is preserved with a double notch. So I can show you here maybe. There's one notch and one on the back side. This might be broken out, but the other one is clearly man-made, but it's too small, too narrow, and too deep also to give sound. So this might have been a decoration maybe. Maybe we will find one day the way how to blow this notch on. But in tests, we discovered that notches smaller than 5 millimeters are really difficult to be blown on. So I prefer the idea, and I can tell you why, that this instrument had been blown on from the other side too. So to test these instruments and to find something out about their musical possibilities, potential, we have to produce reconstructions, of course. And each reconstruction is in a way also an interpretation, because we can't be sure about the total length of the original. Here you can see a reconstruction. A is of the whooper swan instrument, B of the mammoth ivory instrument, and C of the griffon vulture instrument. And D is I included into this analysis. This is a slightly younger instrument from only 23,000 years old, from France, from the Pyrenees, a cave called Easterid's Cave. And I included this because this instrument is preserved from both ends, and both ends are just straight cut. So this suggests a playing method like we have with the Arabic knife flute. So you hold the instrument just in an oblique angle and play on one of the edges. And since there is no playable notch, I prefer this, or I assume this playing technique for those instruments. And there's another reason. As you can see here, I did some research along the river Danube and had just, I was looking for still living flute traditions, and there are a lot of shepherd flutists which use this oblique on the edge night technique, still use this. I can't be sure if a technique like this survives over 40,000 years, but yeah, this is, from my perspective, the most likely playing method for these instruments. And this method, because Johnny invited me to a microtonal festival. Oh, this is difficult now since we have. No.
I think you can make those images bigger. On your right down corner, you have this like slide with a percentage. I mean, it should make those
Right
pictures
down
bigger.
corner.
Here you have that like 64.
Here.
Yeah. Try. Oh yeah, you can make them bigger. Great.
Yeah, but I just wanted to process the slide to drive in one after another. This is difficult, but maybe I can show you another slide which shows equal things. Since Johnny invited me to your microtonal festival, I want to talk about a special musical mean these instruments played by this oblique on the edge technique provide. And this is when I started to work with these instruments, of course, I had no teacher. This was difficult. And another point was very difficult. It was difficult to define fundamental notes because of this special effect. So to each finger hole, a whole range of frequencies belongs. I will demonstrate straight. This was for the first hole, second hole. So you can hear, I can alter the frequencies or the pitches with the oral cavity, just altering the cavity inside. But this glissando range stops at the break to the first overblown tone. And this is the place, these notes just before the break to the overblown tone are very, very easy to refine. And this is why I took them for the fundamentals, but I also, of course, described the whole ranges. And in my music, I also used the whole ranges. And I also awarded composition contracts for different composers, and they, of course, had to know the musical potential of these instruments very well. And that's why I described it in that way you can see here. But I didn't, in the beginning, I didn't understand what causes this glissando effect. And but now, after some research, I discovered here is just an example. You have this open tube for the flute because it's open on both ends in a way, and the wavelength does not stop at the end of the tube. It continues into the oral cavity, and I may alter the cavity, so I do change the length of the wave in the end. But as well, there's another effect playing a big role, which is called the Helmholtz resonator. I don't know if you are familiar with this. So this means if you have a very small tube, like we have with whistling. So if you imagine that the mouth is a very small, short tube, and you have, but you are altering the pitch with the oral cavity, means that the air volume inside of your small tube of just the lips is smaller than the volume inside of your cavity. So the volume inside has more impact on pitches than the volume inside of the tube. And this is the same with the flutes. You have very small diameter, so not a lot of volume. And this is why it is that manipulable by the oral cavity. Let me see. And now I was thinking what, of course, there are no scores from the Aurignacian times. There are no cave paintings or something like that. But I wanted to get closer to what people at that time might have done with these instruments. And these aren't single finds. They are also figurine findings in the same cave as like we have here a water bird or a little baby mammoth. So these are clear imitations and very good imitations of this time. So of course, imitation could have been an issue in the music at that time too. So I spent a lot of time in these caves, especially in Isturiz and the Pyrenees. So this is a cave where you have to go very deep inside of the cave. And I spent hours there, sometimes the whole day, and your senses get really, really sharpened. So I guess if you come out, you get overwhelmed by simple wind sounds or something like that. So I guess this could have played an important role in the music at that time. Sounds like, of course, wind sounds. Of course, always present in cave is dropping sounds. Or as they imitated animals, of course, like birds, there hadn't been a lot of singing birds there because they had, this was a landscape like a steppe. So not a lot of trees, but they had some birds. I did researches upon this. So maybe they imitated birds too, like. So this is similar to those imitating figurines, but they also found something like the lion man you can see here. So an upright figurine in the manner of a human being, but with a lion head. And this is a clear symbol. So something like the transforming of an human idea into art. The same happens with the Venus figurine you can see here. It has no head, just something to put it around your neck. As well, a clear symbol. So they had the approach to express their inner ideas into art, into figurine art. And of course, they could have done this with in their music too. Yeah, and just I guess this is always in the museum, if you can see these instruments, they don't tell you something. So it's more interesting listening to the instruments than listening to me, maybe. And I will give you a little example, just an improvisation. So we have produced a whole CD with different compositions. We followed two ways. So one way was to get closer to what people at that time could have made for music, or how could they use these instruments. And the other way was to face these instruments to contemporary music, contemporary composers, and of course, contemporary audience, like we all are. Okay, I will give you an example.
Anna, could you take off the share screen so we can just have you as the
So, okay. Stop sharing. Here I am. Okay.
Gorgeous.
That's it.
That was amazing.
Beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Thank you.
Can you tell us something about the spacing of the holes? Is there a intent there? I mean, I had always heard that aliquot spacing was characteristic of paleo flutes, you know, the even spacing kind of generating the subharmonic series, but it doesn't look like from your pictures that that's what's going on there.
No, I don't think so. Because so there is a characteristic longer distance. I can show you the third instrument. I'm sorry. So there's always, can you see it right here? There's always a longer gap in the middle, maybe between the holes, but mostly it seems like they have been put on like where it is comfortable for the fingers. You know, we always have left and right hand, and this is the same with the other instruments. You have this gap here, the longer gap, and the others are more close together, but seems like the gap between, or the dividing between both hands.
Oh, but are they equal spacing on either side of the gap?
No, these aren't there are similar spaces, but no equal spaces.
Okay. What do you think they were after? Is it just comfort, or is there an actual set of intervals that might have been pursued by that drilling?
It's difficult to find out those instruments because we can't be sure about the total length, and as well the finger holes just they might have been. So this is the reconstruction is built after the original state of the instrument, but the finger holes could have been smaller 40,000 years ago. So it's really difficult to talk about certain intervals, but there is a dominating third for all those instruments. So the third in different shades, of course, they can't, they didn't, so this tune their instruments like we do today. So these were approximate intervals. And yeah, I can't tell you a lot about this. We are now working, at first we started to work with with a lot of different reconstructions made from the original materials, so as well from mammoth ivory. But now we are starting a project with 3D printed instruments, and this could deliver better results because you have to consider also the inside of the bone. This changes, and each changes pitch. So what I can tell you today is only something like the potential, but not the original intervals. But we are still working on it.
Wow, exciting.
As a non-flute player, though, I have still so many questions for you, and I just would love to talk to you further, like maybe afterwards. But you said at least 3 things that just talk about ringing a bell. I mean, it's not even a bell; it's put me on alert. So, like I'm very interested in Neanderthals making music. And,
yeah. So maybe you know the instrument from Divya Baba. There's a flute
I know that
too.
there was a confusion about a bear biting into something.
Yeah.
So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about. See, I know that, but it was a farce, right? I mean, not on purpose though, right? They didn't know that cave bear had teeth that fit like that. But anyway, I'm glad you know about that too, because it makes me feel like, oh, I was right to know that was the case. But no, I'm more interested in inheriting music genes from Neanderthals, because we have 20% or more in humanity shared, where different people turn on different genes. I have another one that is diabetes 2 is a genetic inheritance from Neanderthals. That's another topic. But if that's true, of course, other things. And I understand this idea of coming out of the cave that you said, where just the sound of air becomes so electric. And when you go back into the cave thought and you see, and now this is really early, right? This is Neanderthal. So we're thinking.
No, this had been Homo sapiens, but.
Well, there were, but I'm just speaking of Neanderthals.
Ah, yeah.
So I'm very specifically. So they're clacking bones. They've got fire in the cave. They've got shadows, dancing with shadows. They've got their voices. They've got what you're talking about, this incredible, being acute to sound that you notice. But they were famously, from what I understand now, they're like a cat with sound. They were electric with what they heard. Yeah. And it just, some of that is just maybe inherent to the caves, living in there. And that, what we think of as like 3 holes is producing what you showed us was like a world. And we've had this discussion in the past in Mu about, let's say Withold was here now. We were talking about the Renaissance flute, recorder, recorder. It's a instrument to flute. Sorry, it's not quite a flute. I mean, that's what I play. But, just because the holes are wider, not for the reason you were talking about wear and tear, but just because the holes were wider, does that mean that they would have to do a glissando just because you could do it easily?
With a, not with the fingers. So the glissando, they were able to do a glissando, but with the oral cavity. As well with the fingers, but it's much more easy to do it with a just.
But the question is whether they did it. You know, I mean, just in other words, because it's available, how much can we assume that they did it? But again, like that's another topic, right? It's not really what we're dealing with today with microtonal flutes. So I want to shelve that and talk with you hopefully at another time further about what these would do, these flutes. But
yeah, I'm absolutely impressed, Anna, by your presentation. We could feel the organic energy of those instruments, and I would also love to talk to you about those instruments. Can you share your contact information in the chat or something that we can stay in touch?
I will do it in the end. I will do it.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much.
But Johnny, as you said, we can. It's really interesting to discuss what they really did or what they choose from the potential of those instruments. Of course, it's available. But what did they choose? But we will never know in the end.
Oh, but that's self-prophesizing, and I try not to do that because it's a closed door, and I just don't want to close the door. You know. Who knows? Like
maybe just by some informations by some shamans, maybe.
Or
we can get closer.
Or you'll find a petroglyph, like Kokopelli, of a flute player.
Yeah.
Or another musician. We haven't found that yet, but maybe we will.
Yeah, maybe. Another Ötzi.
So thank you so much for joining us on this.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. A pleasure. And now I'd like to bring in the last person who's been waiting here from Beijing. Bruce Gremo. And you can come in now. We're going to have you talk first, and I will go to you first, and then I will add the last recording after yours for anybody who wants to stay on.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Bruce Gremo, and I am from calling from Beijing, and hence I made a recording because I knew I would be bleary-eyed and not capable of playing, and certainly not doing tech stuff, which is what my recording is. My extended flute extends into application composition, so I'm as much a computer musician as a flutist. And what I'm going to present is what you could call a mashup of different concepts of what microtonality is. I use Robert's glissando head joint, and one of the strategies that I like to use on this instrument is entirely melodic. And I like to pretend that I could be a Quinchu, the Chinese Quinchu opera singer. So an interesting thing about Quinchu is that it's constantly a dynamic pitch. In fact, it has much in common with electronic music. You could say that a Quinchu opera singer thinks in envelopes, musical envelopes, pitch envelopes, and so on. So that's one element. And the other element is something which the computer or any fixed instrument, fixed tuning instrument can do better than I can do on the flute. And that is very specific tunings. I've always been interested in the Renaissance composer, instrument maker, Nicola Vincentino. And in this particular recording, I use a 31 division of the octave. And basically, it's an exercise in mapping the flute into this world. Now, in the background, there's also 12-tone equal temperament, because very central to these kind of computer applications is pitch tracking. And it's easiest simply to employ a kind of 12-tone MIDI tuning. So then the interesting compositional issue becomes, well, how do you map? How do you map those 12 tones onto the another tuning of some kind, for instance, a 31 division. So hence I call it, it's a mashup, it's an improvisation. I try to play with a view to it being somewhat instructional too. So for instance, sometimes I just play octaves, because when I play the octaves, you can hear the oud. There's an oud that I'm using in the recording, which is where the 31 temperament is applied to. You can hear that, well, it produces consistently a consistent intervallic response to, for instance, playing octaves. If you play octaves, for example, the oud will play vis-a-vis Vincentino's tuning, something like an augmented triad. So there are certain consistencies that to result. There are other things going on too, because in the pitch tracking, not only do you simply identify the 12 tones, but you identify glissandi and transitory pitch envelopes. So glissandi and bent pitches happen all over the place. So I hope you enjoy it. The piece is not 15 or 17 minutes long. It's actually 10 minutes long. And I talk and demonstrate for 7 minutes after that. So I think Johnny's going to play it for me.
Well,
It seems that my...
Can you? You can play it from where you are.
Well, the only reason I had asked you is because I was worried about my connectivity, but it seems that I have a pretty clean line.
I would like you to try because I had a little difficulty.
All right, so let me dig it up.
I'll be the plan B.
And let's see if I can share it here. I need to do something with the sound. Yeah, share the sound. Here we go.
I couldn't get that screen.
Identify that. Oh, I'm getting a, hold on, I need to do a password thing here. Let's see, 1 second. Can you all see that now?
Yes.
All right.
We might want to
This is how it
mute.
goes.
We might want to mute while we see it. You might want to mute too. The video, the recording will show you in the picture if you don't shut your video. But no sound.
Are we supposed to be hearing something?
Yeah, there's no sounds. Oh, there it
Good.
Okay, a quick little demonstration improvisation, and let me explain quickly what is going on here. Well, it begins with the Nicolai Vincentino 31 division of the octave tuning, as it turns out, scripted into, you can see in my screen here, into native instruments contact into an oud. And that's what the string instrument was, and that's what it was doing, 31 division of the octave. And on top of that, using the glissando head joint flute, or AKA amongst flute friends, Robert's flute, with a strategy that I've liked to use for a long time, just to play it melodically, being inspired somewhat by Chinese Quinchu opera, which has a very different take on what microtonal means. If Nicolai Vincentino was the digital artist par excellence of his time, then this is the analog equivalent happening at the other side of the world. There's an analogy that I like to make. It's very easy to make with Quinchu singing and certain Chinese forms, though not all, with electronic music. It's all envelopes. So you appreciate a Quinchu opera by thinking of its ADSR, its attack, decay, sustain, and resolve. So it is at that point simply a kind of mashup, to be quite honest, taking two different approaches for microtonal music and mixing them up. Now, of course, in the background, there is also some good old equal temperament happening. You may recall, if you're watching the screen, there was one module, the pitch tracking module, and it was reporting on MIDI resolution pitches here. But you also probably heard that it was tracking the pitch bending and things like this. So all of this is tracked and used as control, either directly for some sonic result or indirectly controlling some other sonic result. And you might also have noticed that there were several resolutions. So in this little panel here, I can control it from my tablet controller. It says pentatonic, diatonic, chromatic. These are simple resolutions for receptivity. In fact, they're really functioning as filters. So if I say chromatic, it's looking for 12-tone division of the octave. If I say pentatonic, it's looking for a specific pentatonic scale. And in terms of what that means for the scripting and native instruments, let me put my flute down for a second. Well, this is a great strategy for getting lost. If I open up the thing here, you can see where the scripting takes place. Where'd you go? Script editor, here we are. Some of you may know the software Magic Microtuner. It's hasn't been updated and is not supported anymore, to my considerable regret. It's a fantastic software. And there are libraries associated with it of all kinds of tunings. So there are several from Nicola Vincentino's Renaissance explorations, and everything from Pelog tunings to numerous Pythagorean tunings to Lamont Young's just tunings. All of this stuff is available. And it used to be available for me in Max MSP, but it no longer is supported there as an external. So I'm compelled to use something like Native Instruments to script it in and to modify the instruments that I'm using that way. And the rest of this, some of you might know already, for me, flute playing, extended flute playing, means extending into the world of application composition. So I've been doing Max MSP programming for some time, and this is my current standard program. And again, looking at the screenshot, you can see that there's a simple interface, but numerous modules which I access, which do a whole range of different things, including some of you who know a kind of new version of the Cilia, who know my work with controller instruments. So, mashup. That's what this is. It's a show and tell, and it's a mashup, and I hope you found that interesting and intriguing, and maybe even a little bit beautiful. I find the Vincentino stuff amazing. Some of you might know that online on YouTube, if you do a little search under Vincentino, you'll find this instrument maker, some fellow in Europe, who has reconstructed Vincentino's keyboards, the keyboards with the split keys and split keys, and it makes your head swim in a positive way. And I still find that when I'm playing this, mapping things is something I'm going to continue exploring for some time. What you heard here was my sort of rudimentary approximation. So for instance, on the flute, if I play a C octave, C octave, C octave, I'm going to get something which sounds like a augmented triad. So there's sort of funny shaped thirds. If I wanted to play C major triad as an example, it would be like C3 in the MIDI resolution, C4, then a G4. Approximate tunings. The Vincentino tuning is really fabulous. If I quickly demonstrate how close those tones are. Oops. I got too many things happening here. I forgot to turn several things off, so excuse me 1 second and I'll get this happening again. And I do not want my clarinet, so I'm just going to quickly and put my oud back up. Where's my oud? Here it is. There's the oud. So I can use my keyboard here to perform on that. Here we go. Simply going up, I think what Vincentino would have called the enharmonic scale, but he would never have played it this way as far as I know. He would have, was still thinking in terms of fifths and thirds and this kind of thing. Extraordinary. I get lost almost immediately. It's taking me this many years just to really hear 12 tones really well. So anyway, again, a little diversion and digression, and I hope you find that fascinating and interesting. Thank you for your time.
That was very interesting. Thank you.
Yes.
A pleasure.
Even the second time. While I've got you here, let me just talk with you a little bit. I'll just add Alejandro's to the Moo recording as a link, and they can just see it there. Because I just want to talk to you while you're here. I mean, I'm so glad that you were here the whole time. It's terrific from Beijing.
I was. No, it's interesting.
That's a Moo historical note there. I like notes. I really got to know Bruce in my piece Odysseus. I mean, I don't know if you think of it that way, but in my piece Odysseus,
Oops. Sorry.
Do you hear me?
It's looping. Sorry, I beg your pardon. My player was looping.
Oh, okay. I was just talking about in Odysseus. You were part of an island of flute players, and
yes.
There were 4, and you played shakuhachi, I believe.
Yeah. I've been a shakuhachi player for a long time. That was at St. John the Divine, right?
Yes. No.
Yeah, that was nice.
No, St. Paul's Chapel in Columbia University.
Ah, that's right. Okay.
That's right. And
but the thing I remember most, Johnny, from you is playing in the Universe Symphony, the IS.
Of course,
so I thought this was a remarkable collaboration.
Well, you were one of 9.
I've wanted to play in flute sections ever since.
Yeah, that was something, huh? 9 flutes, where the flute was the concert master, really. I told Tom Chu the other day it was him, but we know it was really the flute player. So, yes, that was another experience with you. There may have been others. I mean, we bounced back and forth, I think. And now what are you doing? You're like in China as what are you directing?
Well, I've been head of a music program at a private school, and now I'm focused on middle school and high school. And basically, it's a 21st century music lab. It's computer music. It's not a traditional instrument program. It's all orientated towards composition, improvisation, and listening skills. And so the computer is the main instrument. And many of the students that I get are not musicians. They're students who come in with no background. So it's an interesting context. And that's primarily what I've been doing. I did other things over the years here. I was doing a lot of orchestral playing and chamber music playing. And that was very interesting. Things that I would never have done in North America, playing principal in an orchestra. I got to play Tchaikovsky for the first time. So, there's been interesting things going on here.
I do have some, cultural thought questions, like ever play shakuhachi in China?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a little bit of a dicey issue. One of the first things I did when I came here was I toured Anhui province, and I didn't expect to have a high profile at all. I brought my shakuhachi along thinking I'd find some quiet bamboo groves and have some personal time. And it turns out that a friend of mine her family is well known in Antwerp. So everywhere I went, I was anticipated. And I was always sat in a guest of honor place in the table. And so my way of saying thank you, because I couldn't speak any Chinese when I first came, was to play. And, you know, Japan is sort of a sensitive issue here. And it was always like, well, I'm going to play my Japanese shakuhachi, it's a piece called shui, water. This is a Japanese flute, but really, you all know it's a Chinese flute because, you know, it was emigrated from, you know, and then everyone would nod.
Oh, psychology. Okay.
I know I'd be okay. So anyway, yeah, it's
Okay.
possible that I'm the only person who's ever played honkyoku in Beijing. It's possible.
You know, when I came to Beijing, because I didn't have any advanced contacts, it was I was there with family actually. I could not talk to people because culturally, you had to kind of, you know, be announced overseas first, and then come in. And once you were here, you could knock on the door as much as you want. You can call, and you know, there's nobody to talk to. So when I went to Shenyang, I was there for about a week. You know, I did hear some flute actually coming, you know, wafting from these large buildings where people lived, but it was always Broadway tunes. There were several, you know, and then you know, I was writing some music. I was writing a string quartet on a bus, and people were like, and I did speak some Chinese, so you know, because it's my family actually, and so, but I was alone sometimes with people talking about that music is sort of like was removed from Han culture. And I studied Chinese music with Xiaowen Cheng at Columbia University for a full year, and we were friends. I was, you know, I loved it, but people would ask me, you know, why are you doing this? You know, it's like a waste of time. Or, you know, if there's no words, for example, you know, what's the point? And yet they weren't, you know, being negative. And then they each put, when I would ask them, you know, Weisama, you know, what's the situation here? And they would each give me a different answer. You know, it was because of Mao. It was because of this. It's because of that. Isn't that a curiosity? You know, everybody kind of like just acknowledged it. And so, you know, as we talk it's international. You know, I'll finish right here with this. You know, that we're international. I would love your perspective on China and the fact that you mentioned that these students were not musicians, and that's so positive to the electronic music. You know, because when I played my recorder for family, they didn't want to hear it.
Traditionally, I think it goes back long before Mao. I mean, it's Confucian. Traditionally, musicians are the bottom rung of the economic ladder. The last thing you want your child to become is a musician. And in the Confucian worldview, musicians have a very, very specific role to play in ceremonial music and things like this. There are many folk traditions. I mean, music still happens and has happened. At one point, I remember a musicologist telling me like 20 years ago, there was over 500 forms of Chinese opera. So it happens in a kind of spontaneous way in localities. Most of that is dying, and most of it is not encouraged, except in the past 15 years, there has been a resurgence of interest in classical music. And I think it's predicated on the paradigm of the superstar soloist, so Yang Lang and others. But also in the past 10 years, there's even more of a new trend, because there's really a turn towards nationalism and patriotism and Chinese culture. So traditional instruments are being touted and supported in ways that they hadn't been before. But if you want my take on what real Chinese music is, I'd say two things. I'd say Kunchu opera, because it's very old and esoteric and hidden, and the instrument Guqin, because it's extremely old and there's a lot of literature about it. It's a literate instrument. So if one is to identify that, I think that's where I would start to look.
I know, but when I studied with Professor Cho, he was always saying that they would just hang their chins up on the wall, you know. And then when Mao took over, or after Mao, I guess, they allotted 100 chin players across the country, an hour each on the radio. You know, like it was so regulated. And then you know, when you study chin, and you see the tablature, and you see that the hand keeps moving even though the sound of the string is stopped.
Yeah.
You have this whole philosophical connection to the instrument, which is
yeah, it's an interesting instrument because there was usually accompanied poetry, and it was not seen as music or music in a sense of performance. It was seen as an enhancement to poetry and to text often. So it's a very interesting tradition, and sonically fascinating.
Yeah, there's 3 tunings, as I understood it. And it didn't mix. You couldn't mix them. And they represented earth, heaven, that kind of thing. So you had the open strings, I guess, and then you had the stop strings, and then you had the harmonics, right?
The other thing to say quickly about music in China is that I came at a very opportune time. It was a Wild West when I came here, and there was not nearly as much regulation, and the country hadn't taken certain turns that it has now. There was actually an experimental music scene here for the first decade. There was an underground. I mean, these players subsisted, of course, and most of them aren't here anymore. And it gradually got shut down, but there was a serious experimental scene here. So.
Well, I did have a student show up. I haven't been in contact recently from Shanghai, but she was from Taiwan. And the reason she contacted me was for the universities that she was in Shanghai. She in musicology was given her a topic for a dissertation, and the topic was Harry Parch. So there is very spotty, I'm sure.
Well, there's a small number of students who know here who Harry Parch is now, because when I was doing elementary school, I don't do elementary anymore, I did found sound ensemble. So we upcycled pots and pans and as much rigorous way as we could. And on the main picture on the front of my classroom door was the Harry Parch ensemble. So anyway, he's actually not completely
I mean, there's a lot of music in all these other ethnic groups. The Mongols, for example, and the Tibetans, and so many that people are not familiar with, and the Han, which is like 90% of the people in China, they're perfectly comfortable to take it. But as I understand it, as my last thing about this, if you don't mind, I appreciate this, is my family tells me that music is really on 2 different weeks, which is New Year's solar and then New Year's lunar. And during this period, all the famous actors, comedians, and musicians from all different cultures and pop basically, but certainly folk, and it spreads out to near classical. And then they just have they all are presented and everyone's watching. All the homes are all tuned in. Like if you can break into one of those shows, you're international for them.
Yeah, well, it's true enough. I don't partake in national television, so I haven't seen that, but I know what you're talking about.
I just wanted to know, how you felt about that. Any questions, comments from somebody who's here? So that Bruce may take a nap or something after this.
Yeah.
In fact, please, I'd love to continue talking, please.
Yeah. Please do. It's very interesting listening to you both. Also, Johnny, very interesting facts about Chinese music and all the things, and beautiful presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It seemed fitting, to go from Anna's, prehistoric flutes to you.
Yeah, I know, that's a really great jump, isn't it?
I would say that's the largest interval I've worked with.
Hey, Bruce, that's
30,000 years.
Is that what it is? So small? Like a comma.
Bruce, I had a question. That's an absolutely brilliant max patch. How long did that take you?
Oh, it's evolved over years, it's modular. So the pitch tracking stuff I was doing in the late 1990s, it's evolved and become more sophisticated and nuanced, and some of the routines are upgraded, but and some are new. So it's evolved over time. When I did the quick run through of the modules, that sort of told the story.
Yeah.
You know, there's a large infrastructure, and I introduce all these different modules into it. But a long time. It's not something that happens overnight.
It's a common thing with Macs, isn't it? That I have another composer friend that worked on a patch for 15 years, and it's just kept growing with him. It gets into your it gets into your flesh, and it becomes the way you process the world. You know.
And it's become extraordinarily nuanced. Like I mentioned, for instance, the issue of mapping. And, you know, my solution in that improvisation was very simple, really. You know, I had these 3 resolutions for receptivity to my flute playing for the mapping onto the Vincentino. Right. But of course, I could introduce all kinds of other resolutions. There's so much research that could happen there.
Wow,
Have you had any connection? I don't want to guess. I want to just ask. With IRCOM?
I've studied at IRCOM, but not for extended times. The software, as you know, originated in IRCOM. It was developed by Miller Puckett there and David Zaccarelli.
That's what I was thinking, that it was
from
IRCOM. Yeah. I was watching, I was there, you know, I don't know how many years ago, and I was watching flutists specifically where they were tracking them, but they wouldn't have had that interest for the microtonality. You know?
No, they were really focused on score following on a very specific application, and I'm much more interested in improvising and extending the timbral world of the flute. So, and compositional things too. So anyway, IRCOM, sure.
I just wanted to chime in if I could. Well, yeah, I was actually thinking of Yin. I think is the IRCAM made Max patch for pitch tracking, part of their like free Max bundle. I just loved your presentation. It was just awesome. I think immediately upon learning of the glissando flute headpiece, Robert's flute, I was like, wow, this is like transposing the format of a sound, and was so excited to see that immediately understood and accepted into like this digital and acoustic collage and collaboration that you made with that. I'm just excited to see where your music continues to go too.
Thank you. My focus is really in the control domain in this particular improvisation, but you could take it and really do kind of timbral enhancement. You know, for instance, if you take the flute sound and you start to work parallel with it and modify it in different ways, or if you spectral synthesize it and remake it, there are a few other approaches that you could use if that's your specific interest.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. Very cool. Are your Max patches made available, or are these like a private, as it is an evolving something? I'm just curious if you sell your software or share your software.
They're personal tools. They're sort of pre-beta, so I wouldn't sell them as yet. They'd really need to go through some serious development. And I'll tell you, the other reason I've been in China is I've been raising a daughter. So that has taken a lot of my time. I don't have time to develop the patch. So, but anyway, yeah, sure. I've often thought that I'm behind and negligent in that regard. I should be putting these out there and making some of it available for free as part of the Max community. And sure, there is a commercial potential there as well. Cool. It just takes time and energy, huh? So
yeah. Many late nights making connecting
As
cables
always.
and Max for all of us, probably.
Right.
Yeah, that's Max for you.
Oh, it looks like we've come to the end. Thank you.
One thing I will plug, because apparently not many people know about it, is this software, which is now, as I said, not supported. But if you have an older operating system, you can probably still download it and run it. The Magic Microtuner. It's a great way to listen to tuning. And if for some reason you can't use that, and you have something like Native Instruments Contact, it's very easy to script these libraries into it. And it's, for me, an endless ear training exercise. It's a mega candy store of, tunings, and you get totally lost in it. Great fun.
Be sure to, Bruce, check out also more recently, Subrog Singh's Infinitone software.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Marcus Hobbs's Wilsonic, which is for the iPad, but he also is developing it for the Mac and PC.
So Infinitron.
Infinitone.
Infinitone. Okay, that sounds better.
Yeah, infinitone.com, and you'll see what it's capable of.
And what was the iPad one you just mentioned? What was the iPad one you
Wilsonic,
just mentioned?
like Wilson as in Irv Wilson with an IC on the end. Wilsonic.
Do you know Irv Wilson at all? Have you heard of him?
I don't know.
I think you'd really enjoy it.
This is our checking. We're just checking to see how far afield he's gotten. He's taken over Australia, it turns out. But and certainly the West Coast. But in New York, we did not know him. And Europe, they had no idea. So it's kind of a fascinating thing.
And by the way, Johnny, to just go full circle about your definition of microtonality, including 12 equal, Irv really liked the term transcendent tonality for the same reason that we're embracing the entire spectrum of possible ways of organizing pitch, and 12 equal is one of those within the family.
Right. So, and I'd love to add to that Ivar Darig's idea of zonk. You know, that there's a zonk to 12 equal.
Yeah.
It is a tuning system.
Yeah, no, it's great.
He actually accused it of creating the uneasiness that caused World War II and maybe World War I.
Why not?
He felt that it was that uneasy. It created anxiety.
Interesting.
And maybe all the ways that we blues it, or bend it and shape it, and
we try to break it all the time.
Distort it, all right? With reverb, artificially, and all kinds of things. This is a way to exit that.
Yeah.
Just as and I'll throw this out there as a well, I don't want to frame it. I'm not even going to talk about it. Let's skip that. Anybody else?
I did just want to add on the conversation, Wilsonic and Infinitone, awesome softwares. I'm going to dig up and maybe post in the chat before we close off. The Zen Harmonic Wiki does have just a compiling all software free or for however much, and their compatibility with Scala and etc. So there's such a cool list, and it's great to see all of this archived and compiled.
Excellent. Everybody good?
Yes.
Right.
Hello.
Oh, Hans Gunther wants to say hello. Yes,
Yeah,
from
hello.
Tallinn.
I am now. I am also in a train, so I have a mask and things like that. And because the last train from my university, I can go home, and so this often happened at the end of the Microtonal University. I have to follow on the train at home, but no problem with that. And thank you very much also for this. Enjoying this piece with them experts. I have.
Cheers.
I of course I cannot say that I'm a super max patcher, but of course I'm teaching that for years in Tallinn, in the Estonian Music Academy, and had several students, and also I dream to, of course, to join to join or to join everything together, the idea of microtonality, the wonderful possibilities of digital audio processing in maximum SP, and a third passion what I have is 3D audio or ambisonics, where you have a huge amount of loudspeakers and you can reproduce something like a real sound sphere what is in 3D around yourself, and that was really enjoying how you could achieve 31 EDO through this resampling of your flute sounds.
There's a longer response and a shorter response to all of that, and to be totally honest about it, the oud was taking care of the fixed temperament, and the rest was a little bit flyby, responding probably as much to my glissandi as to my pentatonic, diatonic, and chromatic scales. It's a whole other thing. It's another strategy to put the 31 division at the outset. And the problem that I've had with doing some of things like that in the past is that you just get so much triggered response. You just have to filter your the information data that you're generating a lot. Otherwise, you just get constant triggering. So anyway, I've sort of stepped back from that. But anyway, for me, what's interesting is to hear the resolutions that I'm playing on the flute with the 31 division simultaneously running in parallel.
Yes, that was interesting. Of course, I'm really lucky that you found some way how to make this pitch tracking reliable. I have sometimes fiddled around. I'm by myself trained in some way trained violin player, but not performing professional as an interpreter. But I have not yet found a good solution for tracking.
It takes a lot of tweaking. It takes a lot of tweaking, and the flute player has a very big advantage because the instrument is relatively simple in terms of its overtone series. So it does, and its range is also easier to track, and also its typical envelopes. I've worked with almost every instrument, and some are just impossible. You know, for instance, a trombone. There's always like a blast of noise at the beginning with the trombone. Anything they play, the register becomes more and more a matter of reading bandwidths rather than discrete pitches. Anyway, every instrument has its own problems. So flute and comparable woodwind instruments are really easy by comparison.
But not only the to get the pitch tracked, also to get the onset quickly tracked for some things I imagine to generate in systems like this, and maybe we will see what the big institutions like IRCAM or other or universities what they can figure out nowadays, also with involving artificial intelligence. Maybe there will be also steps forward in the processing.
This will enable one to introduce correction in the whole pitch tracking process, to identify where correction is needed, and to so that's a whole other area that it could develop for sure.
Yeah, but thank you very much.
My pleasure.
So we're going to end now because I'm sure Zoom is going to tell me that there's no more space in their recording, you know, in the cloud, which is great. I don't mind that. I expected it. It's just that, you know, luckily they don't cut you off. I mean, imagine like they'd cut us off, but I will just have to move it around. Thank you very much, Bruce and everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
And have a great one, and see you next week for ear training.
Thank you so much, all. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
See you all again, I hope. Bye-bye.